Our story begins in a small barley tavern. People gathered together, eating, drinking, and chatting cheerfully. A blonde girl smiled slyly. Our esteemed young lady, with such stunning beauty and such a fortune to her name. Lady Charles of the Anbys family remained calm in the face of the teasing. "Oh my lady, surely you have nothing to worry about." "Oh, forgive me, my lady, that came out wrong. You must be troubled about your fiancé." A man beside her frowned. "That's right. I heard his family has completely fallen from grace." A red-haired woman whispered, "Now it's nothing but a barren wasteland, and monsters even roam it day and night." The gossip about Charles never seemed to stop. If he weren't so skilled with a sword, who knows what would become of him? His face is decent enough, but no matter how you look at it, he's still not worthy of our young lady. Charles said nothing and simply stood up. The blonde girl laughed mockingly. "Whatever will our poor young lady do?" Suddenly, a splash of red liquid came pouring down. Charles had grabbed a glass of wine and poured it straight over the girl's head. Someone else nearby grew alarmed. My lady, my lady." Charles spoke up then, sounding almost puzzled. "My fiancé is clearly the one being insulted, so why do I feel like they're actually mocking my taste in men?" The blonde girl dropped to her knees, trembling, hands clasped together. "My lady," Charles warned her, "how dare you slander my fiancé right in front of me? The man I love no less." With that, she hurled the glass to the floor, and it shattered into 100 pieces. The couple from before stood trembling as they listened to Charles declare that today's gathering was over. "Why are you all still standing there? Get out now." One by one, everyone fled in fear. Charles held her pose until the door swung shut. No one could read the expression on her face. But it wasn't long before Charles began to sway. Unable to hold herself up any longer, she collapsed. Ugh. Her face had gone pale, and she groaned, I think I'm going to be sick." She gritted her teeth, tears welling up as she thought, "This isn't fair. The real Charles could drink like a fish, so why did my weak tolerance from my past life have to carry over into this body?" Charles thought back to her modern life, phone in hand, imagining her future stretching out like an endless road paved with flowers, all because her cryptocurrency had just hit it big. Watching the numbers climb, she thought, "Oh my God, how many zeros is that? 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000? Calling it a silver lining might be a stretch, but she had no one to share that fortune with anyway. Her parents and older brother had left on a trip and never come back. The moment she realized she'd struck it rich, she knocked on a door. "Boss, do you have a minute?" A voice answered from inside. "Huh, come in." The instant she walked in, she slapped her resignation letter right onto her boss's desk. "I quit, effective immediately." And just like that, she set off on an overseas trip with a whole new outlook on life, looking around in delight. So many people. Incheon Airport is absolutely wild. Full of excitement about reaching a luxurious resort in Dubai, but then a plane exploded. Charles bolted upright. She rubbed her forehead and sighed, "Oh my God, what a vivid, insane dream that was. I am a god. I have summoned you to fix a flaw in this world. Keep your engagement to Askin Limit for 1 year. Fail, and you die. Succeed, and every last coin of your cryptocurrency will be returned." She gasped in shock. "What is this?" "Charles. That name sounds so familiar, huh?" Looking at herself in the mirror, she marveled, "Oh my God, she's actually gorgeous." Then panicking, she thought, "No, that's not the point right now. Wait, does this mean all my cryptocurrency is gone?" Just then, Rumi spoke up nervously beside her. "My lady, I'm truly sorry for disturbing your sleep." Ever since waking up in this world, Charles had, fortunately, slowly been recovering the original owner's memories. That's a relief. For now, she could keep playing the villainess without a hitch. Charles rested her head in her hand, still worn out from the hangover, as Rumi went on. "And about what you asked me to check on, my lady. The same as always. Your fiancé sent your letter back again. That makes the 33rd time it's been returned." She ordered, "Fine, just leave it there and go." The maid broke into a relieved smile. "Yes, please call if you need anything." Charles picked up the letter and looked it over. Of course. It would be strange if he actually wrote back. Charles's fiancé, Askin Limit, was the very man who killed her in the original story. The world she'd been transported into was an adult novel, where she had to survive as the wife of a tyrant emperor, while the heroine healed the men the villainess had wounded, only for them to end up fighting over her love. Askin wasn't the male lead. but he was the one who led the charge to bring the villainess down. That was because he'd been forced into an engagement he never wanted, with the villainess. He'd been blackmailed using his precious little sister's medical bills. And in the end, he lost that sister because of the very villainess he was engaged to. Charles thought bitterly, right, Charles Anbis, the long-haired villainess, damn it, that's me. Then she shook off the thought. No, what am I even saying? That wasn't me. Those were things the original Charles did. She sat there clutching her head as the hangover dragged on. Her face flushed from it, but even exhausted, her mind kept working. For the sake of her own life and her cryptocurrency, she had to meet Askin at least once. If things kept going like this, would that even be enough? Then an idea struck her. He'd already said he hated her, so why bother trying to patch things up? Rather than risk him discovering she was a transmigrator, wouldn't it be better to just maintain the status quo and avoid him altogether? As long as she kept playing the villainess properly, she could make it home after 1 year. Duke Anbis, Charles's grandfather, appeared with a frown and said, Duke Limit has sent a request to annul the engagement. Charles froze at the news. She gave an awkward laugh. What? Elsewhere, someone asked, have you sent the annulment papers yet? Ben, Askin Limit's aide, glanced over and answered, yes, sir. While delivering the annulment papers to Duke Anbis, I also returned the young lady's letter. But why do you always send her letters back instead of simply burning them? Askin Limit, the Duke of Limit, and Charles's fiancée glanced over. Burning an unread letter would be disrespectful. Ben asked in surprise, why be so courteous to Charles, the enemy of the Limut family? He replied, even though I despise her, I can't be disrespectful to a lady. Sending it back is the most decent way to refuse her. But I only need to endure a little longer, because I will absolutely see this engagement to Lady Anbis annulled. Charles sank to the floor, clutching her head and screaming inwardly, damn it, I'm done for. Just as hope had flickered, he was already demanding the annulment. The one small comfort was that her grandfather still stood on her side. She recalled his words, haven't I told you countless times to mind your manners? Naturally, I have no intention of approving this annulment. See to it that you keep your fiancé in line. Charles clenched her fists and answered, yes, grandfather, while thinking to herself, I'm in trouble now. At that moment, Duke Anbis learned that Duke Limit had suddenly offered to pay off the entire debt, grew suspicious that something was behind the annulment, and immediately ordered an investigation. Charles thought to herself, keeping this engagement intact is truly no easy task, since the man she had to face was none other than her favorite character, the very one fated to destroy her. Talk about pressure. The next morning, warm sunlight streamed through the window and filled the room. She sat dazed on the bed, clutching the necklace tightly in her hand. Charles's gaze settled on the letters piled on the table. She got out of bed and picked one up. Charles held the letter, thinking. She'd assumed he would tear them to shreds, yet here it was, returned intact. It seemed the bond between them wasn't completely severed after all. So if I go see him myself, he probably won't kill me on the spot, right? All right, today I'll go to Askin's territory in person. Charles announced, I'm heading out for a bit. Rumi stammered, her voice trembling. My lady, your majesty. The emperor has arrived. She was startled to hear it. The emperor? Charles's older brother, the tyrant Rosidian, oppressed the heroine in the original story. He was a certified madman, said to have even imprisoned her, and rumor had it he'd completely lost control. And now that very tyrant had come to see her, even if he was her own brother. Her memories of their relationship were still too hazy, and she didn't want to act strangely and arouse suspicion. Charles refused to see him, telling the servants she wasn't receiving guests. The maid answered awkwardly, I'm so sorry. But my lady, it's... Rosidian's voice cut in. No need for that, since I've already come to see you myself. Hello there, Princess. Rosidian, the Emperor, the original male lead, and Charles's older brother. Seeing him, she tensed and clenched her fists. Princess? He's calling the young lady of the Anbis family princess? Charles snapped, I told you not to call me that. The moment it left her mouth, she clapped a hand over it in shock. Wait, her body was reacting on its own. Even her thoughts were slowly starting to mirror Charles's. Charles recalled the original owner's words. I've told you already, don't call me princess. I am the sole heir of the Anbis family, its rightful mistress. The memory surfaced so vividly that it left her unsettled. Charles flinched as the tip of his sword suddenly stopped just inches from her face. Rosidian snickered. Ha ha, Are you really talking back to your own dear brother? Do you need me to teach you some manners? She screamed inwardly in fear. Is this guy actually insane? Wasn't the original story supposed to say he and Charles got along fairly well? Seeing her tense up, he sheathed his sword and said, Fine, it's been a while, so I'll let it go for today. Charles cursed under her breath. This vile man, does he think a sword is a toy? Residian calmly reclined on a chair and sighed. My arm muscles have gone stiff, she thought, jaw dropping. What on earth is wrong with him? Why is he so infuriating? Every instinct told her to punch him in the face right then and there. Residian waved her over. Hey, come here, I have something important to tell you. Charles was suddenly struck by a memory from her past life, her own brother calling her in that exact same tone. Hey, Jiho, get over here. It's urgent. Jiho, hurry up. Jiho ran over irritably. What is it? Residian raised his voice and ordered, Close the curtains, this is extremely important, help the Emperor take his nap. She gritted her teeth, struggling to hold back her anger. No wonder it felt so familiar. Turn off the lights, and he made her come all the way here herself. A tyrant emperor in a novel who's a spitting image of her own big brother. Charles crossed her arms and refused. Close them yourself, are your hands broken? Her attitude clearly displeased him. Excuse me? Did you just call me you? She thought to herself, sizing him up. What a textbook tyrant, so obsessed with formalities. Why does he remind me so much of that actor Jun Ji-hoon? Charles snapped, furious. Yes, I called you. I called you. So what? If you want me to call you brother, then act like one first. Rosidian's voice turned icy. Are you done? She cut him off. So what if I'm not done? Let me finish first. Charles suddenly noticed the strange look on his face. What is it? What's wrong with him? Wait. Don't tell me. Is this the madness the original story mentioned? It just snapped like that, all because his little sister talked back a few times? Someone this unstable, and he's the Emperor? Residian ground his teeth and snapped, How annoying! Why does this have to happen right now? She glared at him, her hand tightening around the necklace. The gem on Charles's necklace suddenly let off a blinding golden light. It was a long moment before she managed to open her eyes and look. Huh? Right in front of Charles was a foot. Residian lay unconscious on the ground. Her eyes went wide, frozen in shock. Is he dead? Did I really just take down the male lead tyrant emperor with a single blow? Charles stared blankly at the gem in her hand. It was still glowing. She couldn't believe she had the power to knock him out in just one hit. A little context is needed here. Charles's father, the previous emperor, had fallen deeply in love with the young lady of the Anbis family. Since Lady Anbis was the sole heir to her family, the royal family struck a deal. They would have 2 children, one to inherit the throne and the other to inherit the Anbis family. And so, Residian was raised in the palace while Charles grew up as the head of the Anbis family. But Residian carried a fatal flaw. The royal family's violent bloodline erupted far too strongly in him. Watching her son grow more unhinged by the day, their mother feared that Residian might one day hurt Charles. She recalled a fond memory from childhood, the Empress smiling and saying, Don't worry, Charles. Mother will turn your brother into a gentle man. From now on, my magic will protect you, Liz. So whatever happens, you must never lose this necklace, understand? Residian called out, Liz, are you all right? She was still dazed, remembering their mother's promise to make him gentle. Charles imagined the scene, him being reformed by their mother, his power surging, the demon inside him fully purged, tears streaming down his face like a river. I'm so sorry. But reality turned out nothing like she'd imagined. Residian cleared his throat coldly. Seems I've hurt you again, little sister. What can I do to make it up to you? Hey, you little brat, what did you just do? She trembled in fear. Mother. His footsteps came to a sudden halt. This time, Residian really did turn sweet and clingy, just as Charles had imagined. Oh, did I scare you? I'm sorry, little sister. What on earth? I think I'm going to be sick. Inwardly, she felt a quiet thrill of discovery. Oh, so this is the magic phrase that activates Residian's gentle mode. Charles said it again. Mother. He instantly turned into a cuddly kitten. Ah, my darling little sister Liz. She tried it again. Mo. But Residian clapped a hand over her mouth. Don't! Stop that! A moment later, he had been so thoroughly tormented that he collapsed to his knees, utterly defeated. Charles smirked, delighted. Don't you dare try that again. Rosidian, annoyed, snapped, "Don't get cocky." Then he called out, "Noah!" A spatial gate suddenly appeared in the middle of the room right after his shout. A moment later, a man named Noah appeared. He spoke up, "Oh no, Your Majesty. You told me everything was under control, yet here you are wrecking your only sibling's room." She crossed her arms, silently judging. Huh? Didn't expect him to show up this fast. Noah cut in, the second male lead of the original story, raising his voice to scold. "Isn't the Empress always warning you about this exact thing?" Rosidian cut him off irritably. "That's enough. Stop jumping to conclusions. I've already found a way to control my madness." Noah was stunned. "What? Something this important, and you're only telling me now? Is it a person? Or some kind of magical item?" Rosidian looked at Charles with pride. "No, it's my little sister." The news left Noah utterly floored. "Excuse me?" Noah let out a small laugh. "Are you joking, Your Majesty?" Rosidian rubbed his temples, exhausted. "Just say it again like you did earlier." The corner of Charles's mouth curled into a wicked little smile. Noah's eyes went wide with disbelief as he heard her chant the magic word, "mother," and the instant Rosidian heard it, he turned instantly sappy. "Hey, hey, my darling little sister." The whole room seemed to freeze over. Noah's face flushed red from holding back laughter. Even the guards were trembling. "Understood, Your Majesty. We'll launch an investigation right away." Rosidian ground his teeth in fury. "Keep laughing and see if you don't want to die." "Today's business will have to wait for another day." Rosidian pointed at her and warned, Don't you dare wander off on your own. And I mean it, stay away from that useless fiancé of yours." With that, he and Noah vanished through the spatial gate, leaving her standing frozen and alone in the room. Charles thought, utterly drained, "I wish I didn't have to either. But if I don't see him, I'm going to die. So what choice do I have?" The next day, at the Amby's ducal estate, Charles sat up wearily. Ugh, my head. Because Rosidian had caused chaos before leaving, she hadn't been able to visit Askin's estate yesterday. After he left, she'd gone right back to sleep. Today, she absolutely had to see Askin. Charles ordered, "Get ready. I'm heading out." Susan nodded and accepted the order. "Yes, my lady. May I ask where we're going?" She added, "To the Limit ducal estate." Even after being dressed and made up properly, Charles still looked lifeless. Her head was pounding, probably from thinking too hard yesterday. She turned to Rumi and asked, "Do you have anything for a headache?" The maid clasped her hands, trembling. My lady?" Charles flinched at the sound of Susan's voice. "Oh, you startled me." She nervously held up a small bottle. "Would you like to try this?" Seeing Susan so frightened, Charles felt helpless. It seemed she'd treated this girl terribly in the past to make her this scared. Susan stammered, "You seemed to have a headache earlier, so I brought this. People usually use it to cure a hangover, but it also works very well for headaches." She stepped forward and took the bottle from Susan's hands. Charles reasoned, "She probably wouldn't dare poison me, and honestly, I have nothing left to lose anyway." Without a moment's hesitation, she drank it all in one gulp. "Oh, it tastes just like a hangover cure," Charles remarked, feeling refreshed. "Not bad at all, thank you." "Here, a gift, put it on." Susan blinked, flustered. "Oh, me?" Once word came that the carriage was ready, Charles set off at once. The three maids behind her watched with envious eyes. "Oh my, I'm so jealous. My lady is truly something else." The carriage soon arrived at the Limot ducal estate. She stepped down and looked up at the magnificent castle. Charles thought to herself, "I know he's struggling financially, but..." The head butler and head housekeeper bowed in unison. "Welcome, my lady." He placed a hand over his heart respectfully. "I'm terribly sorry, but the Duke isn't here at the moment." She immediately understood his implication. In other words, he was politely asking her to leave. Charles said firmly, "But I absolutely must see Duke Limit today." "Limit?" The head maid whispered to the butler. "I can't believe the young lady is being so courteous toward the Duke." Charles blinked, breaking into a cold sweat. "My apologies." Charles continued, "I'll wait inside until he returns. Please show me the way." She thought guiltily to herself. "I suppose I'm imposing today, forgive me for that." Charles took a seat. The butler bowed and explained, "My lady, I truly am sorry, but a visit like this..." She cut him off. "Is there a problem? I've simply come to see my fiancé." He nodded, accepting her point. "We were ordered not to receive guests while the Duke is away." Charles kept staring at the butler's expression, thinking, am I talking to a brick wall here? Still, he wouldn't give up. Please, my lady, I beg you. Just then Ben appeared, cutting into the conversation. Quite the commotion here. Greetings, esteemed lady. Ben, Askin's aide and personal guard. The butler must have already told you, but the Duke isn't here right now. We'll notify you once he's available for a visit, so please, do return home today. She calmly lifted her teacup. Well, that puts me in a bind. I absolutely must see the Duke today. His face darkened as he eyed Charles warily, wondering what she was up to this time. She smiled inwardly. I'm not going to do anything at all. Ben calmly explained, we can't go against his orders. But if you insist on staying, there's nothing we can do about that either. But the longer you stay, the more the Duke will only grow to resent you. Charles fell silent and sighed softly. She stood and agreed. I understand. You're saying I can't wait inside until the Duke returns, is that right? He nodded. Yes, that's right. Charles smiled, the corner of her mouth curling up. Fine then, I'll wait outside. After she left, the maids gathered to gossip. Hey, I heard that young lady has been standing there for hours now. Yeah. I heard that too. Apparently she's in the garden. The garden, isn't that right, nearby? Let's hurry. Let's stay away from there before we get dragged into it. Ben sighed, helpless against Charles's stubbornness. Who knows when the Duke will even come back? Meanwhile, she sat waiting in the garden for Duke Limit. Charles brushed back her hair and admired the flowers in the garden. She took a deep breath, taking in her surroundings. The warm sunlight, the gentle, cool breeze. Waiting couldn't be that hard, could it? Charles waited there until the sun sank behind the mountains. When had she fallen asleep on the bench without realizing it? Charles sat up in confusion, wiping away drool. Oh dear, did I really fall asleep here? How much time has passed? Askin still isn't back? I can't just keep waiting like this forever. Is this the way? No. She wandered around asking for directions, but no one would answer her. The servants kept blocking her path. You can't go that way. Those are the Duke's orders. And that's how I ended up here, but I have no idea where this is. Still, it looks very well tended. Thud. What was that sound just now? Charles's gaze landed on a girl. At her feet lay several crushed flowers. She recognized the girl in front of her at once. Could this child possibly be Askin's little sister, Arya Limut? Not long after, outside the estate. The gate swung open, and a horse rode in. Ben spoke up at once. Welcome back, my lord. Seeing him, Askin asked immediately while I was away, did anything happen on the estate? He answered, somewhat flustered, well, actually. Before Ben could finish his report, someone came rushing over in a hurry. The steward ran up, panicked, and called out, Your Grace. Lady Anbis is with Lady Arya. Over on that side, Charles studied the girl in front of her. Silver hair, blue eyes, this had to be her. The reason Askin was in debt to the Anbis family was this one little sister he treasured more than anything else in the world. She was a pitiful girl afflicted with an incurable illness, essentially a ticking time bomb. She still remembered that dress. She recalled how the original owner had once mocked Arya for actually wearing such tattered rags and daring to call them clothes. Kiemtra. Charles thought, turning pale, that was the very dress the original Charles had picked a fight with Arya over. Seeing her, Arya spoke up, trembling. It's truly an honor to meet you, Charles thought, holding back tears. Please don't force yourself. She grew worried. Oh no, this girl is going to die if this keeps up. Charles quickly reassured her. Really, I mean it. But Arya gasped and couldn't get the words out. A moment later, she suddenly collapsed right in front of her, along with a piercing scream. Arya! Charles quickly turned to call for help. Is anyone there? Someone has fainted. Just then, Askin came running and shouted, Step back now. Charles looked at him in shock. What is this, Askin Limit, of all the times? Why did she have to run into him right now? Wait, this makes it look exactly like she really did something to her. He turned and ordered Ben, Take Arya to her room and call the doctor immediately. He accepted the order. Yes, Your Grace. Arya was then carried off to see the doctor. Now Askin spoke, his voice tight with anger. Lady Anbis, up until now I've overlooked your actions, assuming there must be a reason behind them. But this time I cannot turn a blind eye. You understand perfectly well, don't you, that my limit stops at Arya, and yet you still did this knowing that, didn't you? Charles hurried to explain, No, this is a misunderstanding, I didn't do anything. But he didn't care. Don't lie to me, you came here to get back at me for bringing up the annulment, didn't you? he said coldly. I've endured enough. Even though this engagement is a contractual matter and I owe your family a debt, bullying Arya and constantly humiliating others, that's gone too far. She said nothing, tormented by the thought, if I told him Charles and I are two different people, he'd think I'm insane. But the truth is, the real Charles really was that cruel. Askin turned away, out of patience. This isn't something that can be resolved just by me continuing to endure it. He seemed about to say something more to Charles. But right then she cut in, wait, please, just a moment. She realized the situation. If she let things go on like this, it would all be over before she could say a word. So Charles spoke plainly. First of all, I'm sorry for barging in, but I truly didn't do anything to Arya. That's the truth, please believe me. If you don't, you can ask Arya yourself once she wakes up. Having said her piece, she fell silent and watched Askin, waiting for his answer. And only after a long while did he finally speak. This matter will inevitably reach the palace sooner or later. I intend to formally submit the annulment papers. Charles was stunned speechless at that. What? Her heart suddenly... She remembered the god's words. If the engagement is annulled, you die. If your true identity is discovered, you die. So this is what they meant by dying if the engagement is annulled, huh? Endure this horrific pain and then it's all over? She realized something important. This pain was no joke, and things had gone too far now for her to back down any further. This is a tactic meant to torment him, one she'd never wanted to resort to, but... Charles thought it over for a moment, then said calmly, if you want to annul it, then go ahead and annul it. However, return every last coin you've received during our engagement. Askin said seriously, I'll pay it back soon, so please leave now. She protested. No, pay it back right now. I won't accept an annulment until the debt is settled in full. He calmly reminded her that making a scene wouldn't change anything. Just then, Ben shouted, Your Grace, Lady Arya is awake. Hearing that, Askin turned away at once. I hope you'll leave without causing any more trouble. She still tried to chase after him, clinging on. Wait, Askin. In her hurry, Charles carelessly tripped over a stone. She gasped as she found herself falling straight toward Askin. Charles shut her eyes in panic, thinking, I'm going to fall. Then she toppled right into Askin's arms. Charles froze as Askin caught her. Concerned, Askin asked, Are you hurt anywhere? Your ankle, perhaps? She quickly stepped back and answered, I'm fine. I really thought you'd just let me fall, she said. He explained calmly, I'm not the type to stand by and watch someone fall. She thought, what a noble excuse that is. Now it was his turn to ask a question. So why did you call out to me? Charles avoided his gaze and answered, It's nothing important. I just wanted to say, I want us to get along. The moment those words left her mouth, Askin froze, eyes wide with shock. Charles looked at him earnestly and repeated, I mean it. But Askin turned away and stopped speaking to her. He ordered, Ben, take the young lady home. Ben asked, utterly bewildered. I'm sorry, home where? He said calmly, take the young lady back to the Ambys estate. Time passed and night fell over the Ambys estate. Askin walked the halls, lost in thought. It won't be long now before I find a way to pay off this debt. All I need is to cooperate with the one who reached out to me first. Before long, he arrived at a certain room. Arya lay in bed and called out softly, Brother. Askin rushed to her side at once, his voice gentle. Arya, Askin asked, tell me the truth. Do you remember our promise? What did she do to you this time? Cut your hair, twist your fingers, or mock you again over your shabby clothes? She took his hand to calm him. Brother, calm down. I was just startled to suddenly run into the young lady, that's all. She didn't do anything. Hearing that, he recalled what Charles had said, but I truly didn't do anything to Arya. If you don't believe me, ask her yourself when she wakes up. Still doubting Charles, Askin said, maybe she just didn't get the chance to do anything yet. I'm relieved you weren't hurt. From now on, you won't have to face her again, so just rest easy. The next morning, in Askin's room, the steward entered and called out, Your Grace. Forgive me for disturbing you so early, but there's something you need to see for yourself. He asked, puzzled. What is it? The steward looked flustered. Perhaps you should come see it yourself, my lord. Askin felt a growing sense of unease. What could it possibly be? Not long after, the steward pointed the way. You can look over here, my lord. Askin followed his gesture and looked down below. A moment later, he gasped in shock. That's the Ambys family banner fluttering in the wind. Charles, meanwhile, was calmly enjoying her tea. The table beside her had everything arranged quite neatly. She sat there looking utterly at ease, as though she were right at home. Askin rubbed his forehead in confusion. What in the world is going on? What kind of stunt is this? The steward reported that Charles had firmly refused to leave, claiming the Duke had given her permission. And Askin remembered her words. I've said it before, if you don't pay me back, I won't annul the engagement, and I won't leave here either. Don't even think about it. Seeing the state he was in, the steward looked flustered. I'm sorry, Your Grace. Seeing him say nothing and simply turn to leave, the steward called out anxiously, Your Grace. Then Askin suddenly threw open the door, startling Ben half to death. He snapped, irritated, Ben, bring me those documents right now. He answered at once, Yes, my lord. Askin gripped his pen tightly. This debt, I'm going to make a big deal out of it. Every coin she borrowed during our engagement, plus the penalty for breaking it off. Add the interest on top of that. He recalled the words of that mysterious figure. Your Grace, we would be more than glad to help you, as a reliable partner, of course. A moment later, Askin instructed Ben, Send this letter out at once. He obeyed, Yes, my lord. The mad villainess, Charles Anbys, has been sleeping outside in the street in front of the Limit estate. Charles asked curiously, Is that really the rumor going around? Susan answered, looking pained. Yes, my lady. What should we do? But she didn't care much, just let it be. It's the truth after all, isn't it? Charles thought once she'd finished speaking. Askin, you did say I could do whatever I wanted. It's been 3 days since I started this bizarre camping trip in front of the Limit estate. They call it sleeping outside, but honestly I'm quite comfortable. It's practically a mobile home edition, or something like that, complete with a luxury carriage, servants, and even a mage. My fiancé, the master of this estate, keeps glaring at me every time he walks by. At this rate, I might end up dead faster than I would in the original storyline. Charles thought, a little sadly, I know you're troubled, but please bear with this a little longer. I want to propose a solution that benefits both me and Askin, but I can't say it out loud when his trust in me is at rock bottom. Just then a maid approached and called out, My lady, it looks like it's about to rain. Hearing this, she looked up at the sky. Really? Susan spoke up, No way, my lady, days like this never bring rain. That's what my grandmother always said. But a second later, thunder crashed, and her grandmother's credibility took an instant nosedive. All three of them looked up at the sky anxiously. As the first raindrops began to fall, Charles suggested, Let's get back into the carriage then. Susan suddenly panicked and shouted, My lady, your hair, your clothes. Dark clouds quickly swallowed the entire sky. From inside the carriage, Susan reported, My lady, Rumi and Karen have just arrived at the estate to call for you. They'll bring a mage over, so please wait a little longer even in the cold. I'm sorry for saying something so unnecessary. I should have prepared for the weather in advance. Charles looked at her, puzzled. Susan, why would that be your fault? Susan answered, deeply flustered. But my lady, your clothes and hair are completely soaked. Charles said nothing, just staring at her intently. Meanwhile, Susan was blaming herself endlessly. Charles was reminded of the time her boss had scolded her. Even if I overlooked something, an employee like you should still double-check things yourself. Why are you being so irresponsible? Back then, all she could say was, I'm sorry. Snapping back to the present, Charles said gently, Don't apologize for things that aren't your fault. That's not a good habit to have. There are plenty of bad people in this world who will happily blame you for things you never caused. When that happens, you must never apologize. So I don't want a good girl like you developing a habit of apologizing like that. Hearing those words, Susan was deeply moved. My lady. But how could I not blame myself when you're shivering like this? She answered with perfect calm. Once the mage arrives, he'll take care of it. Just then, someone approached the carriage. The person knocked from outside. Susan asked, puzzled, Who could that be? It turned out to be Arya, asking anxiously, Are you all right? Charles was utterly astonished to see her appear. Arya, in this rain? Why on earth would she come here? Wait, if she faints again like last time, this time it really will be my fault. With that thought, Charles urged her quickly. Come inside first. It's pouring out there. Arya did as Charles said and hurried into the carriage. Excuse me, if I may. It's so cold that we had to squeeze in together. She asked bluntly. Why did you come all the way out here? Arya asked timidly. Why are you speaking to me so formally? Charles answered calmly. Because you're my fiancé's sister. As she said it, she thought to herself, Even though I treated Arya terribly in the past, I suppose I have no choice now but to shamelessly keep it up. Just then, Arya said uneasily, "Actually, I feel like it's my fault you had to stay out here." Charles looked at Arya and said, "You think that because you fainted at the sight of me a few days ago, not because of me." "That's not the reason at all," Arya quickly explained. "I was just too startled back then." "But this time you truly didn't do anything," Charles said calmly. "I understand. It's just that I didn't do anything this time." "That doesn't mean the past will simply be forgotten." Arya was surprised. This was the first time they'd ever had a genuinely kind conversation, and Charles didn't seem like a bad person at all. Those words left Charles troubled, because Arya was so pure it made her heart ache. Charles thought for a moment, then said, "I'm not really in a position to say this, but please think about what I've done in the past." Seeing Arya trembling, she suggested, "It's getting colder. Why don't we sit a little closer together? If my fiancé's sister catches a cold, I'll feel terrible." Making you faint was already more than enough. Charles noticed her clothes and hair were soaked through from the walk over here, so she must be even colder. Unable to hold back any longer, Charles asked, "Is there any way to dry her wet hair?" Susan brought a blanket at once. As Arya had her hair dried, she said gratefully, "Thank you, but you're just as soaked yourself." She smiled and explained, "My hair's a little tangled, but this is much better now. Could you tilt your head back a little for me?" Just then, a loud noise outside startled them both. Askin came rushing over, threw open the door, and shouted, "Arya!" Charles and Arya both flinched at the sound of his voice. She panicked. Wait, this man is about to get the wrong idea badly. Just as she feared, Askin demanded furiously, "Were you just pulling my sister's hair?" Charles's heart sank hearing that. "It's not what you think." Askin scooped Arya up and ordered, "Let go of her now." Arya quickly protested, "Brother, wait a moment." Then she turned and called out to Charles, "My lady." Seeing this, Charles chased after them at once. "Wait, please, just hear me out." But in her haste, she didn't notice and twisted her ankle. And just like that, Charles tumbled to the ground. Susan rushed over in a panic. "My lady, are you all right?" Charles thought, filled with resentment. This is such an unfair mess. Meanwhile, hearing the commotion, Askin turned to look at Charles. Just then, Duke Anby spoke up. "How did things end up like this?" "I came here because I heard my granddaughter has been sleeping outdoors for days, but..." "What exactly do you think you're doing with my precious granddaughter? As her lowly fiancé, you ought to be pouring everything you have into taking care of her." Overcome with fury, the old man slammed his cane against the ground. Duke Ambus raised his voice even further. "And yet you dare let her lie in the filthy dirt like this?" Askin's expression darkened. "It seems you've forgotten I already sent notice of the annulment." Hearing that, the old man scoffed. "You arrogant brat, go ahead and try, if you can repay the principal, the interest, and the penalty all at once. Oh, and if that's too difficult, we could always hold the wedding outright instead of just staying engaged. And let the Limit family be absorbed into the Anbys family." Sensing things were spiraling out of control, Charles spoke up. "Wait, grandfather. Please hear me out first." Behind her, Susan panicked. "My lady, please use the umbrella." Duke Anbys rushed over, full of concern. "My child, are you all right? How dare that vile man treat you this way?" Charles quickly explained, "No, it's just a misunderstanding. And I have no intention of annulling my engagement with the Duke, so please, grandfather, don't speak so harshly to my fiancé." Hearing her say that, the old man gritted his teeth and clicked his tongue once. Then Duke Anbys stormed off, muttering, "What a naive child." Charles turned to Askin. "It's pouring rain, please take Arya home quickly." "Oh, one more thing. Here." "Lady Arya, you shouldn't stand in the rain for so long." With that, she handed her umbrella to the girl. Askin reached out and took it. Charles thought hopefully, well, it seems the annulment and the compensation issue have been held off before things spiraled out of control, since her very life depended on it. Meanwhile, Ben came rushing over with an umbrella in hand. "Here you are, Your Grace." A few days later, Charles couldn't hold back a sneeze. She sat on her bed feeling miserable, thinking, sure enough, I've caught a bad cold. But thanks to the priest's healing magic, luckily it was only a mild sneeze. "If I'm in this state, I wonder if Arya is all right." Just then, a servant outside announced, "My lady, His Grace is calling for you." Charles quickly made her way to Duke Anbys's chambers. Seeing her arrive, he spoke up, "You've come." Charles walked briskly to stand before Duke Anbys. She got straight to the point. "You called for me, grandfather?" He said sternly. "Tell me about that day. Why did you pull Duke Limet's sister's hair that day?" Charles quickly protested. "Wait, I didn't. Her hair was already like that to begin with." She thought irritably, "I was only brushing Arya's hair. The real Charles's old reputation is really haunting me now. This is so unfair." Ignoring her reaction, Duke Anbis continued, "Regardless, you've always hated that girl, so whatever you did, I understand completely. Do you need a new toy? That one's probably about to break anyway. If you want, I'll get you a brand new one, sturdier this time." Charles couldn't help but think, hearing this, good God, listening to such garbage is emptying my mind out completely. Meanwhile, he kept rambling on. "Anyway, you did well pretending to be pushed down." She let out a sound and wondered, what on earth is he even talking about? Duke Anbis went on calmly. "This way I can squeeze even more interest out of him. I've been thinking of ways to wring more money from that man, and you handled it perfectly. He's still useful, so I need to keep him bound with debt. You want to claim that man for yourself too, don't you?" Only now did Charles realize this family was even more insane than she'd imagined. Not only did he treat people like objects, he didn't care about anything except profit. If she followed her grandfather's approach, this marriage was certainly doomed to be annulled. No matter how she looked at it, in this storyline, an annulment meant certain death. This was a bullet train speeding straight toward a dead end. She mulled it over for a while, then forced a smile. That's right. No matter how she looked at it, exploiting this family to win Askin over wasn't a good idea either. Charles then found an excuse to leave. "I'm still not feeling well, so please excuse me." "Have my carriage prepared." The servant understood at once and answered, "Yes, my lady." The carriage soon arrived and carried her to her destination. Sitting in the carriage, Charles analyzed the situation to herself. In the end, I still blindly ended up at Duke Askin's estate. But, Charles thought, the first time they met, she'd been surprised at just how guarded Askin was, more than she'd expected. But she couldn't keep going on like this forever, and she didn't want to strain things too much with this dark, brooding character either. The carriage suddenly stopped, jolting her forward. Charles was caught a little off guard when the servant announced, "My lady, you'll need to step out of the carriage for a moment." Zee was explaining the situation. "I'm sorry, but the road ahead is blocked because of the rain. This is quite inconvenient today of all days. I really did want to see my fiancé today." Suddenly he spoke up. "In that case, my lady, please step on me to cross over." She couldn't believe her ears when Zee offered that on his own. He explained, "As you can see, the road is completely covered in mud. I can't let you set foot in dirt like this, so please, step on me to get across." Charles studied Zee seriously, analyzing him. He looked like a minor character never even mentioned in the original story, probably one of Charles's own men. A night escort just told her to step on him, and he'd said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Just what kind of life did the original Charles live in this story? Regardless, she'd originally planned to visit her fiancé to clear up the misunderstanding. But given the situation, there was clearly no way to keep going forward. So Charles told him, "We can't turn back here. Send for people to repair the road." Zee looked a little surprised, but complied anyway. "Yes, my lady." Time passed as sunlight filtered down through the leaves onto the ground below. Everyone was hard at work fixing the road with great seriousness. Sitting in the carriage looking out, she thought, "It seems this won't be finished today." Then Charles was startled when she noticed something. A group of children were staring up at her. They couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, she's really pretty. We've been spotted. Are we going to get chased off?" A blonde-haired boy just kept glaring at Charles. She stared intently at Zee and couldn't resist asking, "You there, what's your name?" He turned to answer at once. "I'm Zee, my lady." Taking in that information, Charles said, "I see, Zee. Is the entire Limit territory like this?" Zee offered his own view. "It seems so, my lady. According to the workers, the flood damage across the Limit Duchy has been quite severe everywhere. As you know, this isn't a wealthy land, so recovery has been badly delayed, which is why fixing this road is taking so long too." She kept asking questions. "And what about those children over there?" He answered her question. "They're all children from the Limit Duchy. It seems they snuck onto the workers' cart just to come watch." She finally understood. So that's how it is. Askin Limet isn't a man who abandons his own people. This isn't neglect. It's just that the situation has spiraled beyond his control. Charles couldn't help but grumble, what a mess. She reasoned if she suddenly changed too much, it would easily raise suspicion. She'd been warned she'd die if her body snatching were ever discovered, so she had to keep as much of the original Charles's personality intact as possible. So Charles raised a hand and gave the order. Listen closely. I'll be coming back here again. If a disease breaks out in the Limit Duchy and I end up catching it, can any of you take responsibility for that? Get the flood victims help right away, distribute food, and repair the damaged areas. And you all know you don't need to worry about the cost, correct? After all, I'm Charles. The scene shifts to the vast Anbis Duchy. Charles was sitting alone in her room. She lifted her teacup and mused, is the situation in Askin's territory really that bad? Just managing a territory alone is hard enough. Remembering Askin had said he'd pay her back soon and told her to go home, Charles couldn't help but find it strange. Where exactly does he plan to get the money to annul this engagement? There had to be some faction backing Askin, a wealthy place capable of lending a huge sum right away. If it were that significant, it surely would have appeared in the original story somewhere. Think back. A place that could withstand the Anbis family's fury, yet still needed Askin's strength. She sat quietly, trying hard to recall the original story. And then Charles realized, at this point in the timeline, no such place existed yet. Just then, someone entered the room. Duke Anbis walked toward her and said, Charles, you're back. I've heard the news. I never expected you'd use this flood to pull off something like that. I heard you even hired people to repair the roads and rebuild the structures, and on top of that, handed out food and water to the people of Limit. So what did you get in return? Land, money, or perhaps a slavery contract? Anything would do. Charles's face darkened as she looked at him. Slavery? What is he even talking about? Has this old man completely lost his mind? Confused by her reaction, Duke Anbis said, What? Why that expression? Don't tell me. You threw all that money away for nothing and got nothing back in return. She explained, a little flustered. Well, Charles thought awkwardly. We told them it was flood relief donations. He kept pressing her. Seriously? You helped them for free? I could understand if you spent it on your own pleasure, but throwing money away on something so pointless just shows terrible judgment. You clearly haven't learned a single thing from that brat Askin, so it really is best to annul this engagement. This won't do. I need to send you to a family that actually understands the value of money. I'll pick a good, sensible family from among those who've already sent marriage proposals, so just wait for that. Just then, she spoke up. Grandfather, please, hear me out. Displeased, Duke Anbis snapped back. What more is there to hear? Charles said. Perfectly calm, first of all. Free, you say? That's utterly absurd. The entire cost of the flood recovery, interest included, I lent it all to them. The Limit family still holds plenty of value left to exploit. Having said that, she thought to herself, now I'm certain of it, this man himself is the real obstacle standing in the way of keeping this engagement. Duke Anbis, unable to believe his ears, asked again, Is that true? Do you honestly think Askin has some use after all? Charles confirmed at once. What would I possibly gain from lying to you, grandfather? Hearing that, the old man couldn't help but burst out laughing. Duke Anbis looked thoroughly pleased. Of course, I always knew it. You're my granddaughter carrying the Anbis bloodline. If his abilities combine with your cunning, that's right, the eternal power of the Anbis family isn't far off at all. Once the money we lent them is repaid in full, bring him to me. Not long after, in Charles's room, she instructed everyone. That meeting with grandfather has worn me out. I want to be alone. Everyone please step outside. They understood and answered in unison. Yes, my lady. Charles then quickly shut the door to her room. She grabbed her head in anguish. I've barely escaped the frying pan only to land straight in the fire. So what am I supposed to do now? I can't just ignore them when they need help. I don't know how I ended up in Charles's body, but that doesn't mean I want to live as wickedly as she once did. Calm down, there's no use crying over what's already done, just focus on finding a solution. That old man told me to hand over the money once it reaches him, but where on earth am I supposed to get that much cash? Could Charles possibly have some secret stash hidden somewhere? No, even if she does, there's no one left now who'd let me check. Suddenly, Noah appeared in the room without warning. My lady? Charles jumped, startled by his sudden presence. Noah quickly explained. I'm sorry for barging in so abruptly, but this is an emergency, so I took the liberty of coming to see you. She found it strange. Noah, don't tell me he came here without Dion? Then Charles remembered something. Wait, didn't you just open a spatial gate and appear out of nowhere, exactly like last time? He answered, extremely flustered. I'll explain everything later, but for now, please come with me first. His Majesty has lost control again. Night had fallen inside the grand, imposing palace. Countless shattered fragments littered the floor along with the sound of screaming. The terrified guards shouted desperately, Your Majesty, please calm down! Rosidion stood there, seething with murderous intent, gripping someone by the collar. Then, all of a sudden, he broke into an eerie, twisted smile. Terrified, the man cried out, Your Majesty? Your Majesty, please, please spare my life. Just then, Charles walked into the room, gripping her necklace tightly. Stop. Mother would be so worried. Charles and Noah stood watching. Only then did Rosidion finally let go of his sword. Charles, my little sister, have you come to visit your brother? She couldn't help but grumble at the sight. I've got goosebumps all over. Hearing that, he looked utterly deflated. That really hurts my feelings, you know. Thank you for going through all that trouble to help me. Charles immediately asked, Is that man dead yet? Rosidion said no, not yet, and even offered, I can finish him off if you'd like. Charles. She quickly stopped him. No need, I'm fine. Suddenly, he raised a hand toward her. My beloved little sister. That makes me want to throw up. Charles said, seeing this. That's exactly what I wanted to say. Rosidion found it utterly bizarre. Watch your tone with me. She gave a small hum in response, as if to confirm it. Noah, standing nearby, asked with concern, Your Majesty, are you all right? Just then, Rosidion raised a hand to his forehead. Were you the one who brought her here? Noah explained, flustered. But I had no other choice. Rosidion still seemed intent on scolding him. Even so, bringing her to such a dangerous place, how could you? Oh, forget it, never mind. Noah replied, utterly helpless. I already told you, I had no other option. Do you really think I wanted to bring the young lady here? Once he'd said his piece, Noah thought to himself, come to think of it, dangerous as this is, at least someone actually came running to me for help out of concern for His Majesty. Meanwhile, Rosidion noticed Charles's expression. What's with that irritated look on your face? She quickly explained, No, I was just thinking you're quite lucky when it comes to the people around you. Hearing that, he wondered to himself, lucky with the people around me, maybe so. But it seems I'm not so lucky when it comes to family. Hearing that, Charles thought irritably, is he insulting me by saying he's unlucky with family? Wait a second. We're siblings after all, and even if he's a tyrant, he's still the emperor of an entire nation. He must have an awful lot of money, right? So she quickly changed her attitude. Brother, Rosidion asked, annoyed. What? Charles asked bluntly. Give me some money. You said yourself I came to this dangerous place, so you should pay me hazard pay for it. He found that utterly bizarre. Why on earth would I do that? Go ask your wealthy grandfather instead. Charles quickly explained, My grandfather is your grandfather too, you know. Rosidion immediately shot back, I have no grandfather. I don't need one, not some man who'd stab his own grandchild in the back the moment it suited him. Reading his reaction, she analyzed to herself, I already knew their relationship was bad, but I never imagined it was this bad. Rosidion asked irritably, Did that old man cut your allowance? Then, suspecting she wanted to buy a gift for some commoner lover, Charles could only think, exhausted, this is truly the real Charles's karma coming back to bite me. This isn't good. If I back down now, sooner or later Askin and that old man will both end up annulling my engagement. And if that happens? Charles made up her mind, if you really don't trust me, what if I gave you collateral instead? You'll need this necklace someday, so are you still not going to give me the money? Rosidion ordered Noah, Hey Noah, take this and try wearing it. Called on suddenly, he answered, startled, Me, Your Majesty? Rosidion snapped back, Who else? You think I'd wear it myself? Noah looked panicked. If the effect actually triggers, wouldn't Your Majesty end up treating me the same way? Rosidion barked at once, You talk too much. Just do as I say. You think I enjoy this? Both Charles and Rosidion watched intently as Noah groaned, and from the look on his face, it was clear he was praying it wouldn't work. Just who exactly was this experiment for anyway? An awkward silence settled over the three of them. Rosidion concluded, See, no one but you can use it, so it can't be used as collateral. I'll handle my own problems. You don't need to worry about it. I'll find another way. Take it back. Charles thought to herself, That's because I don't fully understand the cards I'm holding yet. But I can't just back down now either. She closed her eyes, bowed her head, and pleaded, Please, I genuinely need that money. This is the first time I've ever asked you for anything like this, brother. Residian hadn't expected this turn of events at all. He was quiet for a moment before finally speaking. If you've gone this far to ask, I'll consider it on one condition. Hearing that, Charles asked, "What is it?" Residian declared plainly, "Give up the Anbis name and become a member of the royal family." It was a vow made between his father, the late emperor, and the lady of the Anbis family. The first child would become heir to the throne, and the second would be sent to Anbis to inherit the family. And so Charles Anbis, unless you personally cast aside the Anbis name yourself, you can never become a true royal princess. Charles thought it over seriously. Becoming a princess wasn't the issue, but doing so would throw her engagement into complete chaos, since she'd only borrowed the money to avoid the annulment in the first place. Hearing that, Charles probed further. "What benefit is it to you if I join the royal family, brother?" Residian answered carelessly, "I don't know, I haven't thought that far ahead." "Oh, but first, break off the engagement with that useless man." Charles answered immediately, "I refuse." Residian asked angrily what she even saw in that useless man that she kept chasing after him, and she shot back that who she chose to pursue had nothing to do with her brother. The two of them locked eyes, neither willing to back down. Residian relented and offered gently, "Fine, suit yourself then. If you don't like that idea, how about this instead? But this is your last chance. Word of your return from your journey has already spread across the capital, so soon you'll be invited to all sorts of banquets and gatherings." Charles answered eagerly, "And then?" She raised an eyebrow, feigning indifference, as Residian told her, "Pick the right moment and cause an even bigger scandal than anything you've done before. Shake up the whole empire." Seeing the fake smile plastered across his face made Charles uneasy. What is he scheming this time? That smile looked truly sly. Charles found it baffling. She'd been on the verge of getting kicked out for causing trouble. Even the royal family found her a headache, yet now they were actually encouraging her to do more of it. Residian explained with a smile, "Actually, the reason is quite simple. He said she needed to become the center of gossip to cover up his own bouts of madness, then offered to give her money with no questions asked, in exchange for her help suppressing the rumors and supporting him whenever he lost control again." Charles thought, feeling helpless. She'd wanted to quietly rebuild her reputation, but the reason for the annulment was already too obvious, and right now she needed the money more, even with her reputation already at rock bottom. Even so, she decided to agree. "Fine, I accept." Hearing Charles's consent, Residian looked positively delighted. Now that's the spirit. She curled her lips into a sly smile and continued, "But you know, don't forget, brother, the string tying down your sanity is still in my hands. If things get bad enough, who knows, maybe I'll just stop helping you altogether." In the dead of night inside the palace, Noah respectfully saw Charles off. He bowed his head sincerely. "My lady, I sincerely apologize for my rudeness when we first set out earlier." She looked at him calmly. "It's fine. You were just in a hurry to come get me because you were worried about your master. Your brother is truly lucky to have such a loyal subordinate as you. Well, if you really feel that guilty about it, you could always help me out with something later on." Noah's face slowly flushed pink as he stared at her smile, dazed. He bowed to Charles respectfully and said, "If that is what you wish, my lady, it would be my greatest pleasure." In a room still lit with lamplight, Residian ordered casually, "Come in." Noah bowed. "I've finished escorting the young lady home, Your Majesty." He praised him cheerfully. "Well done, well done." He asked, puzzled, "But why did you make that kind of offer to the young lady?" Suspecting Noah had feelings for his sister, Residian warned him that he'd be dead for sure if that were true, and Noah immediately and seriously denied it. He fidgeted with his fingers and answered, "But she really is beautiful, of course she is. Look whose sister she is. Charles is my sister, my own family. If I bring her into the royal family, I can find her a proper husband." To Residian, Charles was like a flower to be cherished and protected. He clenched his fist and said in a low voice, "I can't let her stay in the hands of that filthy Anbis family forever." Noah asked, confused, "Isn't Duke Anbis also Charles's family?" But Residian just gave a cold laugh and answered that to that old man, Charles had never once been family. Residian said Duke Anbis had wanted to discard Charles the moment she was exiled, so he couldn't possibly leave his sister beside a man who saw her as nothing more than merchandise. That's fine too. If Charles causes an even bigger scene as promised, the Duke will either abandon her without a second thought or send her somewhere more useful. And when that happens, I'll bring my poor little sister home and grant her the title of royal princess. And while we're at it, deal with that empty shell of a man too. Noah reluctantly reminded him, Duke Limit isn't at fault in any of this. Hearing that, Rosidian slammed the table, furious, scolding that useless man for daring to reject his sister, and concluded it was high time Charles stopped chasing after that hollow excuse of a man. The Empire wasn't exactly short on decent men. Meanwhile, Askin was hard at work. But he flinched, feeling as though someone somewhere was silently cursing him out. Ben, right beside him, called his name. Your Grace. Askin gestured. It's nothing. Go on. Ben continued his report. Yes. Allow me to continue then. My Lady Charles has paid off the entire cost of repairing the flood damage on our territory. Askin's eyes went wide with shock at the news. He repeated, confused. The young lady did that? Am I hearing this right? Ben confirmed calmly. You heard correctly, my lord. I understand your surprise. Suspicious, Askin asked what the catch was. Ben stammered that she'd said she wanted nothing in return at all, which left Askin instantly alarmed. Excuse me? After Askin asked again, Ben fell silent, avoiding the question. He frowned, a little unsettled. She didn't ask for any compensation at all. The two of them discussed it. Given the young lady's recent behavior, she was likely to return to Limit Castle again, and they worried things would end up looking like they'd simply taken her help and then thrown her out. Not knowing how to handle it, Askin was deeply troubled. Early the next morning, at Askin's estate, the guards firmly refused to let her through. No. I've never heard that the Duke gave permission for the young lady to visit. Charles, as if she'd already predicted this, thought, sure enough. She could only sigh helplessly, eyes welling up, and say, I knew it. I suppose I'll just wait outside like last time then. Meanwhile, Susan pouted, eyes brimming with tears. My lady. She quickly brought tea to serve Charles out in the garden. Susan gently set down the teacup. This is Cassan tea, your favorite kind. They wouldn't even let you in again, that's just too much. Charles answered with understanding. It's not really their fault, I didn't give notice before coming this time either. Even as she said that, deep down she felt quite bitter about it. Still, being turned away at the gate like that stung. I never expected a warm welcome, but I did think things might turn out just a little differently this time. Meanwhile, Arya stood watching her from a distance. She spoke up shyly while Charles was still lost in thought. Ah, excuse me. Hello, my lady. Seeing her approach, Charles called out, a little surprised. Lady Arya, it's so good to see you, please, this way. Arya hesitated, apologizing. My lady, I'm sorry, Charles asked, confused. Did you do something wrong, Lady Arya? Anxiously wringing her hands together, she said. Last time I couldn't stop my brother from misunderstanding you. Are you hurt anywhere? That fall looked really painful. Charles explained kindly. I'm fine. I'm perfectly healthy. And that misunderstanding was my fault too. So don't worry about it. Please, have a seat here. Feeling guilty, Arya sat down timidly. Actually, the knights wouldn't let you in because my brother isn't here right now. He said an important guest would be arriving this afternoon. Finding Arya so endearing, Charles happily suggested they share her favorite tea while they waited, which made Arya perk up at once and ask if that was truly the young lady's favorite tea. Meanwhile, Charles drummed her fingers on the table, lost in thought. An important guest, huh? Arya turned and asked, eyes wide, What are you doing out here in the garden? Charles smiled and answered, I'm just having tea and enjoying the garden. The flowers here are especially beautiful. Hearing that, she leapt up at once. The flowers, really? I'm sorry. I just got so excited, I planted those with my own hands. Watching her, Charles found her utterly adorable. It's all right. Suddenly looking bashful, she touched her neck and said, Gardening is my hobby. I especially love crossbreeding to create new flower varieties, especially those big rose bushes over there. Charles thought to herself, she really is having fun. In the story, she was nothing more than a plot device for Charles's sacrifice, but in real life, she was such a lively, vibrant child. Charles smiled cheerfully. She praised Arya warmly. Now that I know you planted these yourself, I find these flowers even more beautiful, Lady Arya. Arya looked as though she'd been struck by lightning, falling even further for Charles, admiring her all the more. Suddenly, Arya coughed a few times, which sent Charles into a panic. Oh no, let's stop here for today, Lady Arya. I think you should go inside and rest now. I'll come visit again, so let's meet next time when you're feeling well. Here, take my handkerchief. Comforted, Arya spoke up shyly. Yes, my lady. Could this be called friendship? Charles was utterly stunned by Arya's innocence. She nearly felt her very soul get cleansed on the spot. Arya, have you forgotten what I once did to you? Charles quickly composed herself and smiled gently. If that's what you want, Lady Arya, then of course, since we're friends now, just call me Charles. Obedient as an adorable little rabbit, Arya nodded eagerly. Yes, Charles said warmly. I'll walk you to the door, she replied happily. Thank you, Lady Charles. Suddenly, a commotion broke out, prompting Charles to ask the servants, What's all that noise? Susan called out from a distance, rushing over. My lady. The people of Limit have gathered in front of the main gate? From a distance, Charles could already see a crowd forming. The people were crowding the gate, pleading with the guards. Please, sir, we just want to say hello. Please let us see Lady Anbis, the one who helped us. Suddenly, a little boy pointed toward Charles. Mom, it's the young lady. The crowd surged forward like a swarm of bees. Lady Anbis, my lady, my lady. Thanks to you, our neighbors and my family managed to survive. We came to show our gratitude. This is just a small token. Please accept it. She stood there at a loss for words. Then suddenly someone spoke up. Wait. A cloak fluttered as someone approached quickly. Askin strode forward, his expression stern. He calmed the crowd at once. I understand how you all feel. Please hand the rest over to the knights and disperse now. The people bowed respectfully to Askin. He then turned to Arya, who was hiding beside Charles. Arya, go back to your room first. You don't look well. I think we should call the doctor. My people were disrespectful toward you. Perhaps we should continue this conversation in my office. Charles didn't refuse. Of course. Askin suddenly stopped and stared at her intently. Confused, Charles stared right back at him. Askin spoke up quickly. Come with me. It seems you have something you'd like to say to me. That left her surprised. Why wasn't he angry? Inside the estate, Charles sat deep in thought. I'm glad Askin has softened up a bit, truly I am. But I also feel pathetic for having to be grateful over something like this. I understand Askin is a victim too, but since I'm not the real Charles, I still can't help feeling wronged. Suddenly Askin set a large sack on the table, startling her. This month's interest. The principal will be sent on the agreed date. Charles sighed, a little deflated. So that's it. Here I thought he'd come to press me over the debt Limit still owed the Anbis family. Charles asked why Askin still wanted the annulment even though repaying the debt wasn't urgent yet, and he only hesitated before thanking her for helping Limit after the flood. Arya had also told him it wasn't Charles who'd pulled her hair that day. But between us there's a past that isn't about you. One that can't simply be forgotten. Not just for me, but for Arya too. Charles fell silent for a moment before speaking with a heavy tone. I've wanted to bring you a new proposal for quite some time now. Askin, don't you want to be free? Don't you want to live happily with sweet little Arya? Hearing that, he looked confused. What are you trying to say? Charles made him a promise. 1 year. Just keep this engagement with me for 1 year, and if you still hate me after that, you'll be free. Faced with such a sudden proposal, Askin sat frozen and silent for a long while. But he quickly answered coldly that even if she let him go, the debt would still remain. Only the creditor would change from Duke Anbis to her. The hostility in Askin's eyes made Charles wonder just how she must have treated him before, for him to have lost so much trust in her, one thing after another until it was exhausting. Well, never mind. Now wasn't the time to explain all that. She calmly proposed to guarantee it with her own life through a magical contract, telling him that once she brought it to him, all he'd need to do was sign it. No more complaints after that. The firm, resolute tone in her voice left Askin momentarily speechless. Charles had already anticipated the reason behind his hesitation. As a matter of course, if the real Charles ever found something she liked, she would wrap it up and give it to Askin no matter the cost, and naturally, Askin's own opinion never factored into any of it. And if Askin ever dared throw away a gift she'd given him, Charles would torment everyone around him to death. So no matter how much he despised her, he'd always been forced to accept it. So this whole situation must feel utterly foreign to Askin, since it was Charles herself now making him an offer for once. Feeling a touch of sympathy, Charles softened, thinking Askin needed time to think it over, which made him ask warily whether she was really going to leave just like that, quietly. She'd already caught sight of the gold coins, but explained that she'd spent all this time wandering the streets outside just to make this proposal, not for the money. I only wanted to see you, to talk with you for a little while, but since you were so busy, it dragged on until now. Having achieved the purpose of her visit, Charles rose leisurely, ready to leave. Before she left, Charles said earnestly that she understood Askin's hesitation, since this proposal was essentially asking him to keep the very person who'd once mistreated him right by his side. It wasn't just him who'd have to endure it either. Arya might not be able to bear staying near the one who'd tormented her either. Recalling how happily Arya had called her my lady in such a sweet voice, Charles thought, a little embarrassed, if things were really as bad as all that, the girl wouldn't have been so cheerful. And then Charles smiled confidently and assured him, "If you accept my proposal, I won't so much as come near either of you again." That firm, resolute promise left Askin unable to hide the shock on his face. With that, she made to leave, along with the sack of coins on the tea table. "Well then, I'll be off." But no matter how hard Charles strained, the item wouldn't budge even an inch. She screamed helplessly inside, "This is so heavy, so this is Rohan gold, it's so much heavier than I expected." Just then, Askin's reminder rang out, stopping her cold. "You could simply call a servant to carry that for you, you know." The air in the room froze solid in an instant, and no one said a word. Thankfully, she quickly covered with a sheepish smile. "I was just guessing the amount of gold by its weight, that's all." Charles was met at once with a look of pure disdain from him. Damn it, that look made it painfully clear he didn't believe a word of it. Thanks to Askin's suggestion, a servant soon appeared in the room at his master's command. Sensing the timing had come, Charles quickly said, "The servant is here now, so I'll be going. Don't forget my offer." Askin urged her along indifferently. "Just go on then." She answered calmly with a teasing farewell that left Askin's face flushed red. "See you around, handsome." The moment Charles left the room, his embarrassment flared into anger and he shouted, "Handsome!" She, mischievously sticking out her tongue, shot back, "What? You're prettier than me, so of course you're the handsome one." A short while later, Charles waited calmly as the servants loaded her luggage onto the carriage. Suddenly, excited voices called out again and again, drawing closer to her. "Princess, princess!" Charles gently stopped the knights beside her from drawing their swords. "What's going on? Kids?" A timid little boy stepped toward her, holding out plump, fresh berries. "We wanted to thank the princess, so we waited for you to come back. These are raspberries we picked ourselves." The youngest girl in the group chimed in eagerly. "We picked them for you, big sister." Setting formality aside, Charles bent down slightly to get a better look. Under the astonished gazes of both the servants and the children, she calmly savored the taste of the ripe fruit. Charles then had someone bring back the sack of coins she'd just received, praising all the while. "Delicious. I can't just take these without giving something back." "Nothing in this world is truly free, so let this be my repayment." Kindness isn't always repaid, but even so, I hope this small token helps you all. The clever little girl lingered nearby, watching Charles without blinking. Noticing this, she gently removed the jade hairpin from her hair. Charles gently pinned the beautiful ornament into the little girl's hair. "Here, this is for you." The children hugged Charles excitedly to thank her, while the knight nearby stepped forward to hurry them along. But she politely told him there was no rush. Just then, the sound of a carriage rang out steadily from somewhere unseen, growing louder by the moment. The carriage's destination was clearly the very spot where Charles's group stood. She wondered curiously to herself, a visitor asking for directions? Who could it possibly be? Charles studied the decorative patterns on the carriage's frame closely. A peculiar detail on the family crest caught her attention, making her wonder why she couldn't recall ever seeing it before, or if she simply hadn't noticed it until now. Which one is this? While Charles was still digging through her memory, a pair of sturdy male legs suddenly came into view. Ian stepped down from the carriage calmly, dressed in elegant attire, radiating the arrogant bearing of nobility from head to toe. From the moment he appeared, his eyes had never once left Charles. Without a hint of restraint, she calmly sized up his intentions with a steady, unblinking gaze. Ian greeted her courteously, calling Charles the most beautiful woman in the Empire, and as the distance between them closed, she got a good look at him and thought to herself, he really is more handsome than she'd imagined. Following proper etiquette, Ian gently took her slender hand and pressed a kiss to it. "The honor is all mine." Charles couldn't help but recall the story's setup. In this universe, the most handsome man, without a doubt, was none other than her own fiancé. Next came Rosidian, and then the second male lead, Noah. So who on earth was this man? Charles immediately grew wary, pulling her hand away from Ian, and asked coldly why he was acting so familiar with her. Ian remained calm, apologized, and introduced himself. I am the eldest son of the Trey family, Ian Trey. It's an honor to meet you, Lady Anbis. Charles silently repeated the noble family name to herself. Trey. The words Duke Anbis had said about how after her annulment with Askin, she would be engaged to the Trey family, suddenly echoed in her mind, weighing heavily on her as she finally remembered everything. The next candidate for her fiancé, the one her grandfather had already picked out for her, in other words, this man was her future husband. Charles was the type who wanted to possess every beautiful thing at any cost, including people, and countless handsome men had shed tears because of her. After sizing him up thoroughly, Charles grew even more certain of her conclusion. There was no way she'd ever let this man go. Furthermore, his calm demeanor was completely different from every man before him, since they usually reacted with fear, rage, or drew their swords and lunged at her instantly. That's right. This man was surely one of the many people the real Charles had once tormented. The air had remained heavy with silence this whole time as Charles stayed lost in thought, yet Ian patiently held his greeting pose the entire time. She composed her startled expression and answered coldly, just for the sake of formality. A pleasure to meet you, Lord Trey. Their conversation ended on an empty note as Charles departed shortly after. Only once the carriage had faded from view in the distance did Ian slowly return to his normal posture. The corner of his mouth curved into a knowing half-smile. The phrase poisoned apple really does suit this situation perfectly. Just then, a reminder from the servant beside him snapped Ian out of his scheming thoughts. My lord, let's go. The scene shifts to a dim room, moonlight flickering faintly through the window. Askin was surprised that Ian had come instead of Count Trey, and Ian explained that if his father had come in person, it would have drawn far too much of Ambis's attention. Sir, have you made your decision yet? You reached out to me so urgently the other day, so you must already have an answer. The terms of our deal remain unchanged. The Trey family will pay off your entire debt in your place, and you'll only need to repay the principal. Askin didn't rush to answer, instead cautiously voicing a question that had been on his mind for a while. I have a question. Why does the Trey family want to help us? Without revealing his true motive, Ian simply said the Trey family was fulfilling its duty as nobility, using its wealth for a just cause. To see a man like yourself crushed by unjust treatment and debt, wasting your talent, that would be a tremendous loss for the Empire. Furthermore, our family currently uses the golden road you opened up, so we've long owed you a debt of gratitude, in truth. The Golden Road was the safe route opened after the monster in the Western Empire was slain on that barren golden wasteland, and it was you yourself who created that road. That was Askin Limit, who had just turned 20 at the time. Ian narrowed his sharp, deep eyes slightly. Regardless, my father has already been more or less persuaded. Could he have possibly changed his mind in the meantime? The moment that possibility crossed his mind, he pressed the issue. I'd love to wait for your decision, but I hope you understand. Unfortunately, we don't have unlimited time either. With no other choice, Askin finally made a promise. Within 1 week, I'll give you a clear answer. Satisfied, Ian brought the negotiation to a close. Understood. I'll wait for good news that satisfies both sides. Speaking of which, I recently heard quite an interesting story. I heard Lady Anbis helped the flood victims on this territory. The people even gathered local specialties together to thank her for it. Forgive my rudeness, you must be tired by now, so I'll take my leave. The sound of the door closing echoed and faded, leaving Askin standing frozen like a motionless statue. His brow furrowed ever so slightly, barely noticeable, yet enough to betray his deep contemplation. Like Askin, Ian didn't leave right away after stepping out of the room either, lingering by the door instead. Their brief exchange had made him realize the two of them seemed closer than he'd thought. Since the moment Lady Anbis was mentioned, the other man had clearly grown flustered for a moment. How troublesome. This only makes me even more curious. The night of scheming and calculation temporarily drew to a close, giving way to the rising sun of a new day. The blazing midday sunlight still couldn't seem to rouse Charles from her bed. That was because right now she was enduring a dull, throbbing pain racking her entire body. Seeing this, Susan grew deeply worried. My lady, are you all right? But all Charles could manage was a groan. This is so unfair. She wept bitterly inside, never imagining that eating just a few wild berries would give her a stomachache like this. To ease her discomfort, Charles kept shifting her position on the bed. She let out one exhausted, gasping breath after another, rubbing her forehead in frustration. I hate being sick, I really do. Susan reminded her gently, My lady, here's your medicine, please drink it first. You'll feel much better after some sleep. She had no idea how much time had passed before Susan's urgent calls woke her. My lady, my lady, my lady. I'm truly sorry for waking you, but I think you need to see this. She rubbed her eyes drowsily, still half asleep. I feel better now. What's going on? Susan reported, flustered. The escort knights have brought a few children here. A flicker of suspicion crossed Charles's eyes at the news. Children? Send them in. And with permission granted, the knights quickly pushed the door open and entered. Charles's gaze shot immediately to a small child's arm, gripped tightly in one knight's hand. Her mood, already low from being sick, plummeted even further the instant she recognized those familiar faces. Aren't these the very children who gave her those wild berries? One knight reported they'd caught the children responsible for the young lady's stomachache, and Maun immediately chimed in, begging her to punish them. Charles alone was left speechless at this bizarre display of one side reveling while the other suffered. Are you people seriously doing this? Using these children as a human shield just in case I might lash out at them in anger? The thought alone made her let out an exasperated, furious sigh. Charles held back her anger and calmly told Susan to take the children to the sitting room and give them some pastries, which made her bow her head and accept the order at once. Susan gently led the children away, leaving Maun and his companions behind, utterly bewildered. My lady. Their faces grew paler and paler as the door slowly swung shut. Once she was certain the children could no longer hear anything from inside, Charles finally let her fury erupt, demanding answers. Since when did I order any of you to bring those children here? The entire room fell instantly silent. Charles repeated the question sternly. Why aren't you answering? Is that question so hard to answer? It took them forever to stammer out a response. But my lady, about those raspberries. Sensing they were trying to dodge the question, Charles cut them off coldly. What I want to know is... She pointed a finger straight at Maun and demanded an answer. Did I give any of you an order? To do that? The man beside him quickly explained they only wanted to make the young lady happy since she'd gotten a stomachache from the raspberries, but Charles, growing impatient, raised her voice. Who did what, exactly? Who gave any of you permission to guess at my thoughts on your own? Charles knew full well herself, yes, her mood was genuinely bad right now, but the real reason she was truly furious was this. It was because these scoundrels had used those children as a shield in front of her. She was at a loss for words with these men. You people have some nerve, acting on your own without my orders. Wouldn't grandfather be so pleased to hear about this? The two men instantly turned pale and swore, This won't happen again, my lady. We were just... Charles had grown thoroughly sick of hearing this. Shut your mouths and stop making excuses. She coldly ordered the two of them, get out. Watching the two men hurry away, Charles couldn't help but think, even though they're technically my personal knights, they've clearly never truly served me at all. I'm quite sure they only ever take orders from grandfather. In other words, the original Charles must have lived a lonely life her entire time here. Inside the room, the children sat obediently on their chairs. At the sound of movement, they flinched and shrank back at once. Charles asked them gently, Haven't you had any of the pastries yet? They're really delicious. A boy stammered, asking her, The knights? His whole body trembled as he explained, The knights told us not to do anything in front of you, just to stand still. And they said if we didn't listen, they wouldn't let us see our parents anymore. Hearing this, Charles's anger flared up again. I should have knocked every last one of their teeth out before walking in here, those damned scoundrels. But she also found it deeply troubling that these children had to suffer such misery simply for being accidentally caught up with a villainess. Charles turned and ordered, Susan, just grab any two things from that drawer over there. She answered at once, Yes, my lady. The moment Susan left, Charles continued comforting the two children. Don't worry, I have no interest in bullying you right now, all right? But I do hate seeing people cry. Hearing that, the boy immediately clamped his mouth shut. Susan quickly returned and placed a small box in Charles's hands. All right then, how about this? From inside, countless golden butterflies fluttered up into the air. Charles told them firmly, If you stop crying, I'll give you this. The two children immediately wiped away their tears. Both of them were instantly captivated by the golden scene before them. The little girl took it reverently but still hesitated. My lady, actually, my little sister was given a hairpin by someone. She lost it and searched for it until late at night, which is how she caught a cold. She feels terribly guilty towards you because of it, my lady. Charles, feeling for her, decided, "It seems I'll need to prepare another one for that little girl." The girl panicked and blurted out, "No, I didn't mean to ask for another one." Charles simply cut her off. "That's enough. Go on home now. I'm tired." Before they left completely, she carefully instructed, "Susan, see the children home safely." Susan bowed and answered, "Understood." Just as she reached the door, a servant announced, "My lady, the Duke is looking for you." Charles froze for a moment, surprised. "Grandfather," she thought to herself, "is it about that matter?" Inside the palace, a voice rang out amid the evening glow. "What is this?" Charles proudly held up a dazzling gold coin. "Can't you tell? It's the reward I received for helping the flood victims." Duke Anbus fell into thought for a few seconds. Charles felt a small pang of guilt. "Well, thinking about it more carefully, it's actually taken from my brother's pocket." A few seconds later, Duke Anbus stood up. He reminded her sternly, "The royal family will soon be holding a banquet to celebrate the goddess's blessing. Don't go causing any more foolish trouble, keep quiet, and conduct yourself properly, understood?" Charles answered indifferently, offhand. "I'll do my best." She already had a plan in place, but after all, she did have a prior appointment to keep. A girl's got to make a living somehow. Duke Anbus reached out and touched the gold coin, then added, "And at that royal banquet, I intend to formally announce your marriage to Duke Limit." Charles's face went completely pale. "What?" When asked whether Askin had agreed to this marriage, he calmly replied while holding the gold coin that a debtor like him had no choice but to obey his wishes. Charles asked curiously, "What if Askin pays off the debt before then?" But Duke Anbus was utterly certain Duke Limit would never be able to pay it off. Not as long as he's still saddled with that useless, sickly burden of a sister. Charles clenched her fists, holding back her emotions, as he told her all she needed to do was win his heart before the announcement, instead of pathetically chasing after him the way she was now. She stared at the stacks of debt ledgers he'd laid out, unable to find anything to say. Knowing she'd been cornered, Charles forced a bright smile and accepted. "I understand, grandfather." The conversation ended quickly, the evening light still lingering on the palace roof. Charles lay face down on her bed, utterly dejected. She kept asking herself over and over, "Damn it, what am I supposed to do now?" Charles panicked, realizing everything had turned from a one-year engagement into an actual marriage, and Askin would surely refuse. It left her thinking the only option left was to sabotage the banquet itself. But that was only a temporary fix. She needed something more certain. Just then, a servant called out from outside. "My lady, a guest from the royal family has come to see you." Charles racked her memory, puzzled. A guest at this hour? As the visitor slowly lowered their hood, a flash of surprise crossed Charles's face. The person standing there was none other than Lord Noah. He bowed respectfully. "Please allow me to send greetings to the noble lady. His Majesty wishes to see you." Charles pouted in disdain. "Just because my brother calls, does that mean I absolutely have to go?" She hadn't expected that remark to leave Noah so flustered. Charles naturally felt a pang of guilt. Noah hasn't done anything wrong, I shouldn't take it out on an innocent person. So she relented and told him lead the way. Hearing that, Noah broke into a gentle smile. He said cheerfully, "Yes, I'll escort you to the carriage." The two of them soon arrived. In a room filled with the finest, most luxurious gowns. Rosidian lounged comfortably in a chair. Radiating an aura of handsome charm, he smiled and said, "You're here?" Charles looked at him, at a complete loss for words. Charles panicked at the thought that everything had turned from a one-year engagement into an actual marriage, and Askin would surely object, leaving her thinking sabotaging the banquet was the only option left. Charles, growing impatient, said, "Forget it. Why did you even call me here?" He waved a hand and called someone over. "I called you here to have your dress made for the royal banquet." The arrival of Babeki left her baffled. "Greetings to the noble lady. I am Babeki, the royal family's exclusive fashion designer." Charles asked tensely why she had to be fitted here. Weren't there plenty of designers at the ducal estate too? Rosidian ordered imperiously, "Be quiet and let them take your measurements." Quite the talker for someone in debt. She shouted, thoroughly displeased. "What does that have to do with anything? He sneered mockingly. "If you don't want to listen to me, then pay me back right now." Charles felt utterly helpless. I really was a fool to borrow money from this man. Residian kept complaining that Charles always wore such inappropriately revealing outfits to banquets, then insisted she dress properly and follow the rules this time, leaving her baffled as to why he kept meddling in her affairs like this. He immediately scolded her for dropping the honorific, prompting Charles to quickly correct herself and call him Your Majesty, while thinking to herself, this man really is the same kind of old-fashioned older brother in every single world. Residian frowned and pointed out, the problem is that those useless people will go absolutely insane over it, understand? Charles stood still as the servants took her measurements. So do you want me to cause trouble or not? He immediately snapped, I'm telling you to go cause trouble. She casually suggested, or how about I just skip the royal banquet entirely? Wouldn't that be a big scandal too? Rosidian would never allow that. You think that's something you can just do? Charles quickly pinpointed her goal, meaning she only needed to spark enough rumors to draw attention, without damaging the royal family's reputation. Just then, Ravella leaned in close to her. My lady, could you raise your arm like this for me? An image of a little girl suddenly surfaced in Charles's mind. The child who'd lost her hairpin and caught a cold searching for it late into the night. My little sister feels truly terrible about it, my lady. She reached out and touched it, startling the woman. My lady? Charles glared at her and demanded, You, where did you get that hairpin? Flustered, Ravella stepped back and explained, This hairpin was a gift from my lover. Her tone turned even colder. Your lover? So you're saying you and this maid are lovers and you gave her this hairpin? I remember clearly. You're the very man I caught red-handed last time. You'd best tell the truth. Why do you have my hairpin? Terrified, breaking into a cold sweat, Maun confessed everything at once. I'm truly sorry, my lady. The truth is, I once had the nerve to pick up something you'd thrown away and gave it to my lover. Charles furrowed her brow tightly, thinking to herself, this man must think I'm an idiot. She turned sharply, coldly, as if waiting for an order. Residian granted permission casually. Do your job well, then. Do whatever you like. Charles's eyes turned cold. That's right. The old Charles probably would have been fooled by this, too. Because she was both extravagant and easily bored, she often threw things away, which left the servants terrified when they saw her seize a weapon. Good heavens. Charles aimed straight for him, but I'm not the old Charles anymore. Never mind them looking down on me. A small child was left sick and suffering, all because of this scoundrel's greed. She stated firmly, I clearly remember giving it to a poor child in the Limut territory. And now you dare treat me like a fool? Maun immediately shifted the blame. It was that woman, Ravella. She forced me to do it, my lady. I only followed her orders. She threatened me into stealing your things piece by piece. I had no other choice. But Ravella had clearly already suspected something and questioned him earlier. Maun, tell the truth. How could you possibly afford something like this on your salary? Don't tell me. You stole it from the noble lady's room. He calmly claimed he'd simply picked up an item thrown out for the beggars, since those wretches wouldn't do anything with it anyway, believing that foolish woman would never find out. Ravella cursed him silently. Maun, you absolute scum. Everything you're saying is a lie. She quickly spoke up to save herself. My lady, I'm sorry for causing such a shameful scene. Please, let me explain. If I'm guilty of anything, it's only accepting the item. Even knowing it was something that scoundrel had forced away from a child, I'm truly sorry. But I swear I never ordered that piece of trash to steal your things, nor did I ever have any greed for them myself. Charles stepped forward slowly. Is that so? Then deal with that man however you see fit. However you handle it, it had better satisfy me. Gritting his teeth, Maun began plotting. Why would that woman Ravella dare wear that thing here of all places? Whatever. I just need to dodge it and take a light beating. That'll do. But suddenly, his entire body went rigid. Maun realized in horror that his body wouldn't move at all. This is killing intent, Your Majesty. He took the full brunt of Ravella's beating without resistance as she calmly demanded, fire that maid immediately. She was furious that the man had known everything yet still dared wear the hairpin in front of her, while Rosidian coldly agreed that a person's true nature really doesn't change easily. Well then, I look forward to you keeping up the good work at the banquet. Charles smiled and took a bite of pastry, asking if he seemed to enjoy this sort of thing. while he secretly hoped she'd cause a scandal quickly and get kicked out of the Anbys family so he could bring her home at once. Charles savored her pastry while watching the brawl unfold between the two of them. Maun couldn't fight back at all, paralyzed by the killing intent. And Ravella, having been betrayed, showed him absolutely no mercy. She felt a flicker of unease. Her own scandalous reputation was probably about to spread everywhere again. She really was done for this time. But Charles was completely wrong. As the rumor spread, people only spoke of how she'd helped the flood victims in the Limit territory and given hairpins and gold coins to the children who'd brought her wild berries. What's more, a few days earlier, she'd also strictly punished a wicked knight who had stolen a hairpin from a child. What a truly kind and gracious young lady, a genuinely noble aristocrat, the one who would become the mistress of our territory. Askin could hardly believe it. Could those rumors possibly be true? Ben was just as bewildered. Yes, my lord. Those rumors are steadily spreading across the whole territory. What should we do? He clenched his fist and ordered, stop them at any cost. We're about to annul this engagement. If rumors spread that she'll become the mistress of this territory, wouldn't that put her in an awkward position too? Arya had said before, brother, about Lady Charles, I don't think she's a bad person. I feel ashamed for always assuming she was wicked. Askin rubbed his temples, troubled. Has that woman won even Arya over now too? The problem is, Charles herself had once asked, just keep this engagement with me for 1 year, that's all. So you want me to bet my very life on this? I'll bring the magical contract myself, and when that time comes, all you have to do is sign it, no complaints allowed. If you accept my proposal, I won't come anywhere near you again. I have to admit, that proposal really did shake me. He spoke up uneasily, my lord. Askin clenched his teeth as though he'd made up his mind. He stood up abruptly and ordered, Ben, prepare the carriage. Ben acted at once, yes, my lord. Askin held firm to his resolve, even if Arya was right about all this. What had already happened couldn't simply be undone. The scene shifts to a beautiful garden overflowing with fresh flowers. Charles lay sprawled listlessly across a table. Damn it. She couldn't stop her mind from wandering endlessly. Back to the moment Charles climbed into the carriage to head home. Noah asked with concern, My lady, are you all right? But she just answered coldly, If I weren't all right, what exactly could you do about it? He smiled gently. Noah gently made a suggestion, noticing she looked utterly exhausted. Would you like me to escort you personally? Charles thought it over for a moment. In the original story, Noah was never the type to just silently endure things, even when the villainess drove him mad. Or was it? He was acting friendly because he knew she could control Residian's madness. If that weren't the reason, then Charles must have... He looked a little surprised when she suddenly fell silent. My lady? Charles walked past him coldly. Forget it, you're annoying me, just go home. Snapping back to the present, she frowned slightly. She didn't understand why Noah was acting like this, but that wasn't important right now. A voice drew closer. I always hope I'll get to see you again, my lady. Ian wore his usual unreadable smile. And it seems today I've finally gotten that chance. Charles couldn't help but be startled. Ian Trey, why are you here? He acted harmless. Oh, come now. There's no need to be so guarded. I haven't done anything suspicious. Still wary, she thought. It's precisely because I know nothing about you that I feel uneasy. Ian courteously held something out. I was on my way to see the Duke, but I simply couldn't pass by without stopping. What perfect timing, since I just so happened to prepare a small gift. This is a fine wine from the Kingdom of Adet, imported from across the ocean. I brought it since I heard you're quite fond of drinking. He watched her reaction closely, thinking, I heard she's practically a heavy drinker, yet she's reacting so coldly. Was that rumor false too? Ian asked, frowning. You don't like this kind of wine? Charles suddenly held out her hand. Give it here. Just as her fingers reached the bottle, it suddenly slipped away, as though Charles herself had knocked it aside. He stared wide-eyed, completely caught off guard. The precious bottle of wine shattered to pieces. She seemed to feel a little reluctant about it too. Charles said nothing, unsure what to say. Ian stood frozen for a moment, then quickly slipped his usual smile back on. Ian spoke smoothly. My apologies. It seems this wine wasn't quite worthy of someone known as the Empire's greatest connoisseur of alcohol. Next time, I'll prepare a wine truly worthy of you. When that day comes, would you care to drink with me? The blazing sunlight continued to pour down over the garden. Charles couldn't make sense of any of it. What in the world is wrong with this man? Just how deep must his grudge against Charles run for him to keep wanting to see her again like this? Suddenly, Susan rushed over with urgent news. My lady, my lady! There's a guest here to see you. She asked calmly, Susan, which guest? She seemed quite agitated. Duke Limit has come to see you. The moment Askin appeared, every gaze around them turned instantly toward him. Charles jumped up in alarm, her heart pounding with unease. Askin, what is he doing here? At the same time, Ian gave a small bow, his tone perfectly courteous. Greetings, Duke Limit. Good afternoon, sir. What a surprise to run into you in a place like this. Askin glanced at him coldly and replied curtly, I see. He shot Ian a look full of murderous intent, and the air instantly grew heavy. He stepped back slightly but still spoke calmly. In that case, allow me to take my leave, so the two of you can enjoy your time together. My lady, I do hope we'll have the chance to meet again soon. Watching Ian's retreating back, Charles thought suspiciously. That man really beat a fast retreat. Could he really have come just to bring wine? But once he'd vanished from sight, the awkward tension between her and Askin suddenly grew even more intense. Charles screamed inwardly, I could just die of embarrassment, especially right after that humiliating flirtation. And to think, before I left, I even called him handsome. I have so much I need to say to Askin. Just then, Askin spoke first, unexpectedly. Seeing that just now actually helped me reach a decision. She froze for a moment, then asked hesitantly, A decision? What do you mean? Askin took a slow, deep breath, his voice dropping low. It seems you were enjoying yourself quite a bit back there. If you've already found another man, then I suppose there's nothing left to do but end our engagement. Hearing that, Charles cursed inwardly. This vile man! How on earth is he twisting my words like this? Then she said, frustrated, I don't know why you keep misunderstanding me, but the man I chose is you. With that, the tip of her finger lightly touched his chest. Charles stepped forward boldly, insisting fiercely, You're completely different from all those tedious men out there. Hearing that, Askin flushed red and answered, flustered, Ah. Before he could finish his sentence, Duke Anbis cut in. So, the two of you are here, are you? Oh my, am I interrupting? What a lovely couple you two make. You really should see each other more often, Duke Limit. Askin instantly swallowed back what he'd been about to say, his tone growing more serious than before. No, actually, your timing is perfect, Duke Anbis. There's something I need to discuss with you as well. Brilliant sunlight bathed the magnificent, splendid castle. Every exquisite item in the room caught the sunlight, casting off a mesmerizing, glittering glow. Duke Anbis sat across from the two of them and asked calmly, So what exactly requires my presence as well? Askin answered at once, It will be easier to explain with everyone involved here together. Charles sat silently beside him, watching him with a puzzled look. Easier to explain. Wait, don't tell me he's planning to? Just then, Askin's cold voice rang out, I, Askin Limit of the Limit Ducal family, formally request the annulment of my engagement with the Anbis family. Every word he spoke landed like a fatal blow against Charles, leaving her frozen in shock for a moment. Charles's small heart clenched with a sharp, sudden pain. Trembling, she reached out to grab hold of Askin, her voice breaking. Wait, hold on, Askin. But Askin cut her off mercilessly. I won't be changing my mind. I genuinely want this engagement annulled. Hearing that, Duke Anbis raised an eyebrow, his voice dropping with fury. You've stayed silent all this time, and now you pull this? I told you to use every means necessary to win her heart, you useless fool, and in the end, all you've done is bring shame to the Anbis name. Charles quickly tried to explain. Grandfather, but his furious shout silenced her at once. Silence. Someone. Take this girl outside. What are you all standing around for? Drag her out now. A group of guards immediately rushed forward. Charles stumbled backward, panic rising within her to its peak. Wait. These men were supposed to be her own personal guards. Could it be he was being cautious, afraid Charles might recognize their faces and seek revenge later? She struggled desperately to break free from the guard's grip, screaming in panic, Let go of me. The teacup on the table suddenly crashed to the floor, shattered porcelain and spilled tea splashing across the ground at Charles's feet. As she was forcibly dragged away by the guards, she cried out in desperation. Grandfather. Duke Anbis looked at Charles with indifference and said mockingly, I'll give you whatever you want, so go on now and play with your little toys. After she was taken away, the two men continued their conversation. He pressed on, Now that my dear granddaughter is gone, let's continue, shall we? I'll give you one final chance. Do you truly wish to annul your engagement with my granddaughter? It seemed Askin had been pushed to his limit. He gritted his teeth, struggling to hold on to the last of his composure. Askin answered firmly, "Of course I want to end it. I can even repay the entire loan in cash immediately." Hearing that, Duke Anbis let out an amused laugh. "Very well then, let's review the contract. This engagement is a binding agreement between two families, secured with money as collateral. Since you wish to terminate it before the agreed term, there will be a breach of contract fee. The penalty amounts to 50% of the remaining total interest." The moment he finished speaking, Askin protested at once. "That's absurd," but the old man said indifferently, "If you can't pay, I'd be more than happy to accept your entire territory instead. No matter which path you choose, curing your sister will remain nothing more than a distant dream. For the sake of our old acquaintance, I'll pretend I never heard this request. Just make sure you play the role of Charles's fiancée well at the upcoming royal banquet." Askin stayed silent, saying nothing in response, but inwardly he sneered, "Did you really think I'd let the goose that lays the golden eggs go that easily, you damned old fox?" Out in the castle corridor, Charles had broken free from the guards surrounding her and rushed back toward her old room. She cursed inwardly. "I knew it. He's exactly the type of man who'd use even his own granddaughter as a tool. But this has gone too far." Charles replayed what had just happened in her mind, the moment she'd furiously shouted at the guards, "Don't touch me!" Just then, a strong hand had reached out and stopped them for her. Z spoke in a calm, steady voice. "I'll hold them off. Please hurry and go, my lady." As Charles recalled it, she thought to herself, "Could Z really be the only one left who's still loyal to me? But right now, I need to find Askin first. He's probably right now over at..." Before long, the evening light bathed the entire castle. She caught sight of Askin at the stables just in time and murmured to herself, "There he is." Charles hurried toward him, then called out, "Askin, wait, please listen to me." Before she could even finish, she froze at the sight in front of her. What caught Charles's eye was a stream of tears running down his handsome face. Askin didn't bother wiping them away. He simply turned his head and looked at her in silence. Charles was instantly stunned to see Askin crying. She lowered her voice and spoke gently. "Are you crying?" Startled, he quickly turned away to wipe the tears, murmuring, "Please forgive my loss of composure." Askin thought to himself, embarrassed. Damn it. Of all the people, why did it have to be her who saw him like this? Suddenly, Charles's cold voice rang in his ears. "What exactly did my grandfather say to you?" The turmoil in Askin's heart instantly settled, and he stood there perfectly still. After a long moment, Askin finally answered, "This should be good news for you, actually. The annulment has been postponed for now." Charles stared at him in silence, filled with suspicion. "Postponed, huh? After he treated you like that, shouldn't this have been resolved immediately?" "Just then," he added coldly, "this isn't over yet. I will absolutely see this engagement annulled." Hearing that, she grew alarmed and asked hesitantly, "Have you even once considered my proposal? Or has everything I've done for you meant absolutely nothing at all?" "If you really hate me that much," before Charles could even finish, Askin cut in calmly, "it's not your fault." She froze for a moment, blurting out, "What?" He continued explaining, "Even though I'm citing you as the reason for the annulment, the real cause is Duke Anbis." Duke Anbis demanded a breach of contract fee, an absurd, unthinkable amount. Having said that, Askin paused, recalling the old man's words. "This engagement was established with both families' assets as collateral," he continued. "The penalty will be 50% of the remaining total profit." He raised an eyebrow, a shadow of sorrow crossing his face. "If I don't cut this bond off soon, he'll keep using that contract as an excuse to squeeze money out of me. The Duke's greed knows absolutely no limit. He's used this engagement to extort money, reputation, even my swordsmanship, and who knows what's next. Have you ever imagined how this would end? He'll keep satisfying his bottomless greed and then discard us the moment we're no longer useful to exploit. Who wouldn't want to escape a fate like that?" Charles was left stunned by Askin's words, watching him quietly when suddenly he asked gently, "Are you hurt anywhere?" "Perhaps this isn't the right time to bring it up, but I want to fulfill my part of the responsibility. The tea set shattered, and the knights handled you rather roughly. So, if your body was hurt anywhere at all, our castle has medicine for injuries. I'll have some sent to you." Charles sighed softly, her voice tinged with a pout. "Unfortunately, what hurts me most is still the fact that you announced you wanted to annul this engagement." Askin cleared his throat, answering awkwardly, so I'm afraid there's no medicine that can cure that. If you'll excuse me. She let out a small huff, then teased sharply. Aren't you just running away because you don't know how to respond? Just then, smoothly mounting his horse, he stated firmly, Not at all. I still have matters to attend to. With that, Askin rode off leisurely on his horse. Charles stood still in the stables, silently watching his retreating figure, and let out a weary sigh. In the end, I still couldn't say what I truly wanted to say. At the same time, in another magnificent, pristine castle, in a study bathed in sunlight, a stern voice rang out. Your Grace, a letter from Duke Limit has arrived. A deep, warm voice answered, What does it say? The blue-haired assistant read aloud at once. He says he accepts the conditions you've laid out. However, he also requests a few additional changes to the terms. Ian took the stack of documents, his sharp eyes coldly scanning every line. He said in a cold voice, The final amount has gone up. Just then, the blue-haired assistant spoke up timidly. What would you like to do, my lord? Ian curled his lips into a sly, fox-like grin. If the amount has changed, then naturally I'll need to add a few conditions of my own too. As night fell, Charles wandered aimlessly through her own garden. Deep in thought, she raised an eyebrow. Today I really should have brought up the royal banquet, but Askin's tears left my mind in complete chaos, though I suppose I can't blame someone just for crying. More importantly, I truly never expected there to be another reason behind his wanting to annul this engagement. So what am I supposed to do to protect both my life and my pile of money? At the same time, Z quietly followed behind, serving as Charles's guard, his eyes silently watching over her. Suddenly, the sound of an argument broke out nearby, and Z spun around at once, ready to protect Charles. Two guards were arguing right in front of the castle gate. One said helplessly, I've told you 100 times, the Duke has already left. The blue-haired knight immediately shot back, Stop lying to people. He's not the type to leave the castle without saying a word. He shouted, I'm certain he's being held here somewhere. Just then, an authoritative voice rang out. He isn't here. The blue-haired knight cried out in alarm at the sight of Charles. My lady! She spoke calmly, questioning him. Why are you looking for my fiancé here? He left a long time ago. He answered in a hushed voice. Then where else could the Duke possibly be right now? Charles said sternly at once. You're his personal guard. Shouldn't you be the one who knows that better than anyone? Why are you asking me? Oh. The blue-haired knight bowed his head, stammering. Well then, if you happen to see the Duke. She tilted her head, looking at him, thinking to herself, it's obvious he doesn't believe a word I'm saying. But he suddenly cried out urgently, Please tell him that Lady Limit is in critical condition. Charles froze at those words. The news struck her like a bolt of lightning through the hand. Charles snapped, her voice sharp. What? The stillness of the night had settled over the castle of the Limit Duchy. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the empty corridor. Askin threw open the door and rushed in, his voice frantic. Arya! Arya sat up in her sickbed, smiling warmly. Brother? He rushed to her side at once, unable to stop blaming himself. I'm sorry, Arya. I could have come back sooner, but there was trouble in the trading district nearby recently. No, never mind. That's all just an excuse. That's right, nothing but an excuse. Suddenly, Arya took hold of Askin's hand, her voice gentle. Brother. I'm much better now, thanks to the young lady. She brought the Anbys family's doctor along with healing mages to see me. And she stayed by my side until I recovered. She even covered the entire cost for the mages, too. Did you know that, brother? Have we been misjudging the young lady this whole time? Or should we give her a chance? Askin sighed softly, his voice low. Let's talk about this later, Arya. She nodded obediently. Yes. After lulling Arya to sleep, he quietly slipped out of the room. Askin's assistant spoke up hurriedly. Your Grace, I'm confident the young lady will understand. Just then he cut in coldly. Young Count Trey has added a new clause, hasn't he? Hearing that, the man reported at once. Yes, well, the clause added in exchange for covering the increased payment is, the engagement with Lady Anbys must be annulled. The next day, the ducal castle basked in brilliant sunlight. The assistant slumped over the exquisite stone table, thinking wearily to himself, I really am about to collapse from exhaustion. I got back so late last night because I had to confirm Arya had truly pulled through her critical condition. But at least I got to see her safe with my own eyes, so it was worth it. Rumi spoke up anxiously. My lady, the Duke's knights have been waiting outside since 8 in the morning. Is it really all right to keep them waiting like this? Susan urged her on too. It's almost lunchtime, my lady. She sat up wearily, lost in thought. I brought both a healing mage and the family doctor along, so it would be strange if that old man hadn't found out by now. I acted too rashly without thinking of the consequences, but who had time to think it through back then anyway? Then Charles spoke up. Girls, help me get changed, but there's one condition. Let's just take our time getting me ready. She sighed inwardly. It's a shame I'm not in the mood to obediently endure the first round today. It wasn't long before Rosidian lost his patience and kicked the door open, storming in. Charles looked at him, confused. What on earth is going on? Rosidian stormed toward her and demanded, Is that any way to speak to your brother, who's nobler than the sky itself? She corrected herself at once. No, what exactly are you doing here? He laughed, arrogantly boasting, Your gown for the banquet is finished, so I've come to fetch you. Charles then answered flatly, Did you really come in person just for that? Yes. Hearing that, Rosidian pouted. Hey, the Emperor himself came here in person and you're still talking back this much? She quickly lowered her voice to smooth things over. No, I just mean you usually send Sanoa for this sort of thing. Why did you come yourself today? Just then, Duke Anbis appeared and greeted him respectfully. Son of the Empire, the king of all beasts roars beneath the golden light. Glory belongs to his imperial majesty. Yes. Charles glanced at him, quietly understanding. Ah, I see. He's deliberately making a public appearance just to show off in front of that old man. Kicking down the door was probably just for show, too. At the same time, Rosidian said mockingly, Oh my Duke, you really should know when to stop. I never expected you'd lower the royal family's sacred bloodline down to the level of common beasts. Unfazed, Duke Anbis answered cleverly, Lower it, not at all. I only came because I heard you were looking for my granddaughter. He kept pressing, Is there a problem with me seeing my own sister? The old man replied, It's not that this humble servant has any issue with your majesty's intentions, but Rosidian cut him off at once. You clearly do have an issue, and a rather big one too. Charles, meanwhile, casually told Susan to put her earrings on, and she answered at once, Yes, my lady. Duke Anbis suddenly lowered his voice. Your Majesty, if I may be so bold, could you please limit how often you visit my granddaughter? No. That child is Anbis's daughter, not part of the royal family. In other words, she belongs to the Anbis family. Charles heard every single word he said, and frowned in irritation. Has this old man really started treating me like his property now? Rosidian mocked him. Just because you believe such things, do you really think she belongs entirely to Anbis? The old man flinched. Your Majesty. He continued indifferently, If believing something alone made it true, then I suppose I'll go ahead and believe you're a man destined to go bald soon. In the end, Rosidian's mockery had succeeded in provoking Duke Anbis. He suddenly lowered his voice in warning, I'm not mocking you either, Duke Anbis, but let's just see how far that little idea of yours actually gets you. Regardless, I'm taking my sister with me today. Her custom gown from the palace is finally finished. As for you, old Duke, just sit here and count your spare change. Rosidian quickly whisked Charles away, and the heavy door slammed shut behind Duke Anbis. Charles. Furious, he gritted out an order, go buy jewelry, clothing, anything expensive and precious right away, and bring it to Charles's room for me. I won't stand by and watch Charles get overshadowed by the royal family's wealth. I simply won't allow that to happen. Charles is the very face of the Anbis family. At the royal palace, Charles stepped down from the carriage as it came to a stop in the middle of the palace courtyard. She suddenly called out, Z, why are you following me? Z answered calmly, Because I'm your night guard, my lady. Confused, Charles tilted her head. You're just a knight my grandfather assigned to me, that's all. If this keeps up, he'll end up calling you over and... Suddenly a gust of wind blew past, and his eyes flashed with a pain, as though he'd just lost something precious. Z answered cautiously, My lady, don't tell me you've forgotten. Just then, Rosidian urged her along. What are you doing? There's no time. Hurry up. And with that, Charles's attention was pulled away. She glanced back at Z once more, then followed Rosidian into the palace. He stood at attention before the carriage and bowed respectfully. Inside the palace, all sorts of luxurious garments were on display, when suddenly a pleading voice rang out. Your Majesty. This humble servant. This humble servant begs your majesty. The finest materials from the Western Sea will arrive shortly. Please allow us the honor of making an outfit for the young lady. The female designer knelt and prostrated herself at Charles's feet, pleading. She wondered, puzzled. Is that really all she got down on her knees to ask for? Beside her, Residian spoke up, irritated. You're begging me. So why are you pleading with Charles instead? The woman quickly explained. My legs just went weak on their own. He looked Charles over and nodded in approval. I like this idea too, request granted. The female designer looked overjoyed. Thank you, Your Majesty. Looking at herself in the mirror, she was instantly flustered. Impossible, this isn't sapphire, this is a blue diamond. Are they giving me this just so I'll act like some spoiled, pampered young lady? Residian walked up to Charles, showering her with compliments. Clothes really do make the woman. Lucky for you, you look a little less fierce now. He said proudly. The royal designers really are exceptional. Anbis's designers could never compare. Charles teased him at once, with such skilled designers around. How is it your own fashion sense is still so terrible, brother? Rosidian instantly bristled. Lucky for you, you've been looking less fierce lately. I know you're blind with love, but you really should take a good look at me too. Charles just sighed. Oh, come on. The servants beside them exchanged glances and laughed. They really are siblings, no doubt about it. Charles then brought up Askin, Duke Limut. His expression instantly darkened like coal. You seriously dare compare me to that empty shell of a man? She waved a hand. When did I say that? I only said my taste is like Duke Limut's. There are all sorts of different tastes in this world, you know. Still refusing to back down, Residian lowered his voice and demanded, Are you defending that man right in front of me? Seeing him growing angrier, Charles decided to stop talking, only sighing inwardly. Oh, great. Here we go again. What is he even mad about this time? Getting no answer only made Residian angrier still. Then he noticed her trembling, gripping her necklace tightly. Residian sighed, helpless, and she managed to calm herself down. He softened his tone and reminded her, That's enough. On the day of the goddess's blessing banquet, I'll be the one escorting you, so make sure you wear that gown properly. Charles asked, confused. What are you talking about? I already have a fiancé. Why would you be the one escorting me? Residian smirked slightly. I'll be ordering an extremely strict dress code inspection that day, after all. This is a formal royal banquet. That empty shell of a man doesn't even own a single decent outfit to wear. He won't even be able to set foot in the banquet hall. Hearing that, she frowned tightly, cursing him silently in her head. This bastard. Charles put a hand on her hip and said disdainfully, Go ahead and try it. You think I'll just sit back and take that? Residian pointed at her, sneering. Little sister, after swallowing up all my money, were you planning to just ignore me now? Charles shot back sharply at once. You're the one who used me as collateral to ask for help. I've never once used my own fiancé as collateral for anything. And besides, if you keep treating my fiancé like that, the whole reason I borrowed the money in the first place loses its meaning. He grumbled irritably. Why is your voice getting louder and louder? Be quiet. Huh? Why did you suddenly stop talking? Charles paid no attention to what he was saying at all, looking instead at Noah behind him, unable to help but wonder, what's wrong with this guy now? Confused, Residian turned around, looking utterly baffled. He looked at Noah with an irritated expression and clicked his tongue once. Then Residian grabbed him tightly and dragged him along. What are you doing? Come with me, assistant. Noah, not even given a chance to react, cried out, Your Majesty, I can walk on my own. Residian, allowing no argument, ordered, Then be quiet. Watching this empty scene unfold, Charles couldn't help but marvel. Does Noah really put up with a superior like that? With that, she rested her chin, looking grim, and let out a sigh. Charles recalled Duke Anbis's words from before. I intend to announce your marriage to Duke Limut. Then Residian scolding, Are you standing here defending that man right in front of me? She rubbed her forehead, 3 parts helpless and 7 parts reluctant, wondering to herself, why are these two men both so desperate to tear Askin apart? From the very start, don't they realize? Askin doesn't even want to attend this banquet. Isn't that the real problem here? She clutched her head and groaned. Grandfather and that man really are utterly useless. She covered her face, deep in thought. Even so, I need to do something. My life is on the line here. The next day, a voice called out, My lady. I'm the head designer of the AB Boutique. The purple-haired girl introduced herself. I own the Vieg store, the fastest-growing shop in the empire, the jade-haired girl added. This humble servant is Bon of La Papa, my lady. Have you received the limited edition bag I sent last time? The blue-haired girl smiled and said, My lady, it's been a while. The purple-haired girl chimed in, Even first thing in the morning, your face is still absolutely flawless. The brown-haired girl praised her too. Your skin truly is, without a single blemish. Charles thought to herself, Who on earth are all these people? Losing patience, Charles flicked her hair and asked, What are you all here for? She walked over and sat down, letting them fawn over her. My lady, you truly do have a wonderful man. Duke Anbis dotes on you so much. Clothes, bags, hats, and shoes in this reception room, they're all limited editions made exclusively for you. Glancing at the pile of items, she remarked, At this rate, forget my cryptocurrency, even my life might be hard to hold on to. And what's the point of all these things anyway? More importantly, the outfit my brother gave me is far more beautiful than any of this. Charles let out an exasperated sigh, which left the three women behind her looking like their souls had left their bodies. Rumi walked in calmly. My lady, just tell us whatever you need. The other one quickly added, That's right. If you'd like something custom-made, we'll prepare it right away. She stepped closer to Charles and called out softly, My lady. Rumi said something that made Charles lean in and listen closely. Then Charles shouted loudly, leaving all three women stunned, jaws dropped, eyes wide. All of you, get out. The blue-haired girl hadn't even finished speaking. My lady, wait. Before the woman outside could finish her sentence, Charles had already slammed the door shut. Then she turned to Rumi and asked, What are you all up to? Hand it over to me. She answered, Yes, my lady. Charles looked at the letter, puzzled. Did my fiancé really send this? Rumi answered respectfully, Yes, a servant from the Limit family delivered it personally. Holding the letter, she couldn't help but marvel, Good heavens, I actually received a letter from Askin. But her mood didn't improve one bit. If anything, she felt even more anxious, probably because she had no idea what was written inside. She recalled Askin's cold expression and his words, I formally request the annulment of my engagement with the Anbis family. After all, the last time they'd met was to discuss the annulment. In her mind, an image of Askin asking after her surfaced, So if you're hurt anywhere, our castle has medicine for injuries, I'll have it sent to you. Charles stared silently at the letter in her hand, unable to say a word. Then she resolved to open it. Charles looked at the words written on the letter. Dear my lady, the Limut family will never forget this kindness. I intend to attend the goddess's blessing banquet as your fiancé, not only to repay you for helping my sister, but also for your own benefit as well. Charles looked at the lines on the letter. He'd used formal, respectful language throughout. Truly, just from the handwriting alone, his character shone through clearly. Please send your reply through the knight who delivered this letter. Charles blushed as she noted, but in the end, there still wasn't a single word of thanks. Susan clasped her hands, curious. My lady, there must be good news in that letter. Rumi added, You kept smiling the whole time you were reading it. She asked, embarrassed. Did I really? Rumi smiled brightly and answered, Of course you did, truly. You looked so happy just now. Charles suddenly fell silent for a moment. She abruptly ordered Susan to call the designers back, along with Jess, and to summon the designer in charge of the family's affairs as well. Rumi understood at once and answered quickly. She spoke firmly, Gather all of them together and tell them to make a magnificent formal outfit that matches my banquet gown. Cost is no concern. She accepted the order. Yes, my lady. Charles crossed her arms and stood watching the two of them walk away. She turned back around. Then she walked off, still looking at the letter as she went. Charles walked over to a chair and slumped down into it. She wondered pensively, even after going through all that effort, is he finally starting to open up to me? Meanwhile, among the capital's usual troublemakers, someone spoke up. So you're saying the young lady turned down another invitation to meet today? How could she just abandon us like this after only one night? A young lady with orange hair chimed in, There's so much to worry about before the banquet, from the color of the young lady's gown to the jewelry for this royal banquet. The blonde-haired young lady answered, She claims she has a reason for keeping quiet about the banquet. But whatever the reason may be, she's clearly and shamelessly ignoring us. Rodaria sipped her tea as she listened to them talk, then set the cup down with a cold, thin smile. So what do we do about this? We can't just sit back after being insulted by the young lady like this. So we'll have to show her reality ourselves. The blonde young lady asked cautiously, "Wait, Lady Rotaria, don't tell me you're planning to?" Rotaria smiled coldly. "That's right, we'll publicly invite the young lady, so that she'll be left utterly alone at the royal banquet with no dance partner to attend my engagement celebration. No matter how much money or power she has, she'll never be able to have love. We'll show her the reality of who she really is." One morning, Charles walked down the corridor with Susan. She was so overjoyed she nearly cried. Finally, I'm no longer banned from entering," Susan whispered. "It seems that knight from before really did know how to repay a favor, my lady," Charles murmured softly in reply. She thought to herself. I never expected that incident at the gate to turn out like this. A moment later, a man in a neatly pressed uniform spoke up. "I'll go inform the Duke." She froze on the spot, having already mentally prepared herself to camp outside the gate again. He said sternly, "To be honest, the Duke still forbids you from entering the castle, but Lady Limit instructed us that if you came today, we were to let you in, my lady. Since the two of their orders contradict each other, I'll confirm with him and let you know afterward. And one more thing, thank you. Thanks to your help with the flood in Limit, my younger brother made it through his critical condition. I wanted to pass along his thanks to you personally, my lady." Charles walked in amid the servants' respectful bows, and although a little surprised, it didn't feel bad at all. Suddenly, a voice rang out, catching her off guard. "Do you have some business here today? Didn't I already write everything I needed to say in that letter?" Charles pouted and glanced over at him. Then she spoke up. "You sound so polite in writing, yet you can't even manage half that in person?" Askin quickly backpedaled. "No, what I mean is, why on earth did you bring that thing with you anyway?" She said sweetly, "This is my fiancé's love letter. Of course I have to keep it on me at all times." His eyes went wide. "A love letter? What nonsense are you talking about?" She cupped her cheeks, mischievous. "A letter exchanged between two engaged people. Isn't that a love letter by definition?" Askin objected at once. "Think whatever you want, but don't drag me into your delusions. Give it here. I'll throw it away for you." Charles snatched it back quickly. "Absolutely not. You're forgetting something important." He asked at once, forgetting what? She placed a hand over his chest and said, spelling it out word by word, a reply. "I came here to answer your letter." Startled by her words, Askin flushed as red as a ripe persimmon. He placed a hand on his chest and said, "Then why didn't you just write back?" She answered, "Because this isn't something that can be said through a letter. Askin, in your letter you said you'd attend the banquet with me, correct? Listen closely. At this royal banquet, Duke Anbis is going to announce our marriage." Askin froze at that. Unable to hold back, he shot up and shouted, "What?" Charles raised a hand to calm him. "Wait, Askin, I'm telling you this because I want us to figure out a solution together. You know as well as I do that I can't stop that old man on my own." Hearing that, Askin suddenly recalled Count Anbis's words, "Go ahead and play with her however you like." Sensing what he was thinking, Charles suggested bluntly, "So refuse him then." No matter how selfish he is, Duke Anbis still cares deeply about appearances. Charles still values her reputation greatly. If you publicly refuse at the banquet, he won't be able to brush it off like last time. He froze, about to protest. "But if I do that, then?" She shrugged and reasoned, "You'll lose face, sure, but it's not like you'll die from it, right?" She calculated silently to herself, "If we marry, Askin will kill me eventually. And if we annul, the contract will take my life. So keeping the engagement intact is still the safest option." With that thought, she kept persuading him, "And I don't intend to make you work for free either. This time, all I truly need is for you to keep the engagement for exactly 1 year. My first proposal was rejected when you chose annulment instead. Thinking back, that makes sense, since aside from me staying out of your sight, you gained nothing at all from it." Askin answered calmly, "I'll think about it as positively as I can." Charles rested her chin on her hand and said firmly, "If anything comes up, just contact me. But unlike last time, don't go making any sudden decisions on your own again. I really thought I was about to die that time." "Well then, I'll be off. You don't like me sticking around too long anyway, right?" Before Askin could respond, I don't..." He blushed, realizing he'd slipped up. "What did I just say?" Charles winked. "Oh, right. Don't worry about your outfit for the banquet. I've already had it made for you." He shouted at once, "What, wait a moment," but she paid him no mind and kept walking, telling herself, "I need to get away before he refuses." Once outside, Charles couldn't help but reflect. He really has changed. From his tone to the whole atmosphere around him, perhaps her efforts hadn't been entirely wasted after all. Suddenly, a voice called out, "My lady." Arya came running from a distance. She imagined some mischief with the girl and instantly panicked. Who could resist someone this pretty and adorable? She immediately shouted, "Don't run!" Arya answered cheerfully still, "Yes, my lady. Thanks to you, I finally slept well that night for the first time in ages." She smiled and replied, "Well, good. At least that makes it worth the money I spent." Suddenly, the girl hesitated. My lady, actually, there's something I wanted to ask." "Could you brush my hair for me one more time?" Charles answered without hesitation. "Of course, we're friends after all, right? This time I'll brush it extra carefully." She and Arya sat together on a chair as she gently ran the comb through the girl's hair. Charles looked at the comb, feeling a pang of sadness. Her comb is far too worn out. I should buy her a better one. Suddenly, Arya's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "Actually, ever since I was little, I've always imagined what it would feel like to have an older sister. It's not that I hate my brother or anything," she said with a small smile. "I understand. You just admire the fact that your maid has an older sister, don't you?" Arya stammered. "Yes. My maid from before had an older sister. The two of them were very close. She used to say her sister always waited for her to come home too. That's the thing I envied most." In truth, Askin often left the territory to search for a cure for Arya, so it made sense that she'd often been left home alone. The air seemed to still for a moment. Charles told herself time to change the subject and asked Arya, "So what happened to that maid of yours? How is she doing now?" Arya went pale, unable to get the words out. Well, that maid?" Charles felt a pang inside. That tone of voice made it obvious something had happened to that maid. Suddenly, the girl broke into a bright smile. "Anyway, I've just always imagined what it would be like to have an older sister. I've thought about it so much." Charles watched the scene unfold with a heavy heart. Then she said, "I've also thought it would be wonderful to have a little sister like you, Arya." And so time passed by. Until the day of the banquet arrived, a maid called out respectfully, "My lady, His Grace the Duke wishes to see you." She turned and confirmed, "Grandfather." A voice echoed through the quiet room. "What did you call me for, Grandfather?" "I'm busy preparing for the banquet, you know." Duke Ambus asked sternly, "Do you know what day today is? Today I will announce your marriage to Duke Limit." She cursed inwardly. This old man really is beyond help. She retorted, full of reproach, "What kind of announcement is this, when even my fiancé doesn't know about it yet?" He said imperiously, "That's enough. From now on, you just need to obediently follow my instructions. I'll place everything you need right into your hands." Charles was furious, but kept her composure. "Place what exactly into my hands?" "My own execution, Grandfather? Given Duke Limit's temperament, if he hears about the marriage right there at the banquet, the ones who lose face will surely be the Ambus family." Duke Ambus laughed mockingly. "My dear granddaughter, that's precisely why you're still so naive. There's nothing in this world that money can't buy. All you need to do is become the most beautiful woman at the banquet. Beautiful enough that even Askin will feel unworthy of you once the marriage is announced." She clenched her fists, silently condemning him. "He's shamelessly treating me like nothing more than a pretty doll." Charles crossed her arms and smiled darkly. "Yes, Grandfather, I understand." Inwardly, though, she couldn't resist a bitter thought. "I definitely warned you, Grandfather." Once outside, Charles glanced around and sighed. What a waste of time rushing over here for nothing. Seeing her, a maid called out respectfully, "My lady." Charles politely dismissed her. "I need to think for a moment. Please step outside for an hour." Understanding, the maid stepped out. "Yes, my lady." Once back in her room, she slammed the door shut. Charles looked at the swirling blue smoke drifting in front of her and spoke up. "Seriously, why are you in my room again? Has my brother lost his temper again?" Noah answered, breaking into a sweat. "No, everything's fine today." When she asked if he was going to teleport her to the banquet, Noah admitted honestly that he wasn't the one escorting her. She pointed at him teasingly, "Saying all that and you're still not the least bit flustered. What if I'd been changing clothes in here?" Noah blushed and defended himself. "No, I was absolutely certain that would never happen. I only act when I'm completely sure of things like that." Charles mused, "So you're basically the royal family's spy reporting back in real time?" He protested on the verge of tears. That's so unfair, my lady. In the name of His Majesty's honor, I would never enter your room with any such intention. She asked, puzzled. Why swear by the Emperor's honor instead of your own? Noah explained his reasoning. Because I came here under His Majesty's orders, so it's only right to swear by his honor. Charles frowned. What orders? Mid-sentence, he suddenly dropped to his knees. The thing is, Noah pulled a small box out from inside his coat. He opened it, revealing a glittering necklace inside. This is a gift His Majesty sent for you. She examined it and sighed. The last one was already excessive enough, and now he wants me to wear another? Noah answered calmly. He said one necklace alone wasn't enough to hide the world's most important collar. And that particular item isn't something you can just casually remove either. Charles set the necklace back in its box. All right, I understand that's all, right? Just put it on the table before you go. Seeing this, he asked at once, Is it that you don't like it? She brushed her hair back and asked, Why are you suddenly asking that? Noah lowered his head, his voice trailing off gloomily. Even though it was by His Majesty's order since he was busy, I was the one who actually picked out this necklace, so if it doesn't suit your taste. At first, I just thought it was pretty enough to wear. Charles smiled reassuringly and reached for the necklace box. But since you picked it out so carefully, looking at it again, it's actually even more beautiful. You're not doubting my taste, are you? Noah blushed and placed a hand over his chest, answering, It truly is an honor. At the same time, at Duke Limit's estate, Arya called out playfully, Brother? Everything's ready for the banquet, and yet... Confused, not understanding what was happening, Askin asked, Arya, what's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? He was, as always, dressed simply. Seeing that, she pouted. Arya said in a low, sulky voice, I really thought you'd wear the formal outfit the young lady sent. He asked, puzzled, Arya, what matters is that I show up in person, but how do you even know the young lady sent me clothes? He called out again. Arya. Ignoring him entirely, she threw all her strength into yanking the wardrobe door open. Looking at the magnificent formal outfit inside, Arya answered, Lord Ben told me about it. He said the young lady prepared an incredibly beautiful outfit made just for you. It's so beautiful, it really does feel like it was tailored just for you, brother? Askin scolded her fondly. That man Ben really does love sticking his nose into unnecessary business. She held onto his sleeve, her voice trailing softer. You used to wear such beautiful clothes too, brother. Askin placed a hand on her shoulder and said, Arya, I don't need clothes like that. She spoke up. Brother, do you remember 5 years ago I was terribly sick? When I finally opened my eyes and woke up, I was so scared, thinking I'd have to endure that same pain all over again. And that's when you told me. Arya, you're healthy again now. The most important thing is this very moment right now while you're healthy. The image of Askin comforting her with those words, that she didn't need to keep looking back at the past. Askin froze at Arya's words. You said that to me, and now I want you to look at the present too, brother. It's true the young lady once hurt you badly, but nowadays, every time I say I don't feel well, she's always the very first one to come running, worried. Now she even brushes my hair and shares tea with me too. What I mean is, for the young lady's sake and for your own too, please, brother, try being a little gentler. She smiled, relieved now that she'd gotten it off her chest. Then Arya wrapped Askin in a tight hug. Meanwhile, outside Charles's estate, a heated argument had broken out. A man dressed in black insisted, naturally the young lady must ride in the Anbis family's carriage. The one in white wasn't backing down either. This carriage was granted by the Emperor himself. Are you people planning to defy the royal family's order? The servant behind them called out softly, My lady. The two men still wouldn't stop, each insisting the royal side was being unreasonable toward the Ambis heir. Charles remained calm, but the banquet hadn't even started yet, and she was already exhausted to death. Charles looked silently at both carriages. She quietly judged to herself, grandfather's carriage really is far more beautiful. The royal carriage is certainly flashy, but it's not really my taste. But if I just send it back like this, that tyrant of a brother will surely lose his mind. An image of Rosidian crossing his arms and scolding her flashed through her head. You're not using the carriage I sent you? Who do you think you are? Before the man in white could finish his sentence, Charles cut him off. Never mind. He turned at once and answered respectfully, Yes, my lady, I'll escort you to the carriage His Majesty sent. She crossed her arms and refused. No, that's not it either. Go strip every single royal crest off that carriage for me." Both the men in black and white stood dumbfounded, unable to understand what was happening. "My apologies." A moment later, the crowd stirred with excitement. "Hurry, get into position. The royal carriage is arriving soon. It's been so long since the royal family personally escorted Duke Limit. The royal family, I heard." Arya thought to herself, "That's the Ambis family's carriage, though." But then she suddenly noticed something. She kept analyzing it in her mind. The design really is from the Ambis family. But the crest belongs to the royal family. Arya's eyes went wide with confusion, like a startled little fawn. Even so, she quickly brushed the thought aside. Still, it really is beautiful, so very like the young lady. Suddenly, the carriage door swung open. Charles stepped down gracefully. Arya's eyes went round as she called out loudly, "My lady!" Her face paled as she scolded the girl fondly. "Arya, why are you standing out here in the cold like this?" Arya voiced her thoughts at once. "This carriage is so beautiful. Did you pick it out yourself, my lady?" Charles narrowed her eyes. "Well, quite a lot happened with this carriage, actually." Arya broke into a nervous sweat. "Huh, what happened?" Charles just smiled. "It's nothing. A good girl like you doesn't need to know. But why are you waiting out here? Are you attending the banquet too?" Arya clasped her hands gently and denied it. "Not at all. I just came to see my brother off, and I also wanted to see you, my lady," Charles answered while glancing at Askin's outfit. "How touching. Arya came all the way out here just to see me, but it seems in the end he still isn't wearing the outfit I sent." Arya grabbed hold of Askin's sleeve and spoke up hurriedly. "Wait, my lady, just a moment." Startled, Askin exclaimed, "Arya!" She yanked his outer coat right off. Revealing the blue formal wear underneath, Arya explained, turning to her, "Brother made me wear so many layers, so I made him put on this extra cloak too." "Are you surprised? But you must be freezing cold too, my lady. Are you all right? You gave your cloak to Arya right before you left after all." Charles answered quickly, "I'm fine, I'll be in the carriage or the Great Hall anyway." Askin took off his outer coat on his own. Then he draped it right over her shoulders and said, "Hurry, get inside." Charles glanced at him, startled. What's gotten into him all of a sudden? Is this a green light? Arya smiled brightly and found an excuse to leave. "Now that I've seen you and sent my brother off, I'll take my leave first. I hope you have a truly wonderful time." Askin and Charles stood there, both flushed red with awkwardness. She predicted to herself, "I have a feeling today is going to turn out just fine." Outside, the rain was pouring down in sheets. She looked out and thought, "I really should have known good luck never lasts long." Once they arrived, Charles remarked, "We've made it, but the rain is so heavy." But before she could even react, Askin had already opened the door and stepped outside alone. Charles was left utterly stunned by the situation. Wait, don't tell me he actually left me here? Is he serious? 20 minutes later, she cursed furiously under her breath, that infuriating man. Suddenly, a black umbrella appeared right in front of her. Askin had returned. He courteously held out his hand. "It's raining hard. Be careful. Aren't you getting out of the carriage?" Charles took his hand and said, "I thought you'd left me behind." Askin explained, "If it were you and me as usual, I probably would have done just that, but I always keep my promises. Today I'll play the role of a model fiancé, so don't worry." With that, the two figures slowly made their way inside beneath the umbrella. The servant standing by the door noticed the commotion and glanced over. Seeing the two of them together, he spoke up, flustered. Forgive my rudeness." Charles asked, confused, "What's wrong? Is there some issue with our attire, or did my brother give you all some special instructions?" The servant bowed slightly, flustered. "Please forgive the misunderstanding. Allow me to show you both inside." Then the doors opened, and the two of them slowly stepped in. A loud voice rang out, "Please welcome Lady Anbis and Duke Limit." From a distance, a few young ladies whispered among themselves, "When exactly did she come back?" "Lady Charles has been back for a while now, and you didn't know? We should really warn everyone to be careful from now on." Watching her, Askin felt uneasy. It's true, wherever Charles goes, she draws attention, whether for good reasons or bad. He suddenly asked, "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" "If it hurts, tell me. I'll personally get you home safely. Do you still need me for that?" Hearing that, Charles let out a small laugh. She crossed her arms and teased, "It doesn't hurt, and even if it did, I wouldn't want to miss out on having my fiancé escort me." Askin looked at her and answered, "I honestly can't tell if you're being serious or just joking." Charles teased mischievously, "Oh, were you hoping I wasn't in pain?" Up above, Ian looked down at where she and Askin stood. Askin scolded her fondly. You really are? Just then, Rosidian walked over. You finally arrived. Hello there, my dear little sister. Charles sighed, clearly annoyed, and greeted him. Forgive me for the late greeting, Your Majesty. Have you been well? Rosidian mocked her, calling me Your Majesty and yet showing no manners at all. She kept smiling outwardly, but screamed inwardly, You're the Emperor. How am I supposed to greet you without acknowledging that? His face darkened as he gritted out, Hey, you're cursing me in your head right now, aren't you? I can tell just by looking at you. Charles provoked him further. What are you talking about? Don't be so petty, Your Majesty. Rosidian snapped angrily. You want to die? She glared and shot back. Go ahead and try it, and I'll use that necklace on you. He challenged her. Go on then, try it. Askin crossed his arms, watching the two of them. Rosidian spoke up, Enough. I didn't come here for this. Charles urged him along. Fine. Whatever you need to say it quickly, and then go. He held out his hand and said, Take my hand, we're going to dance. She put a hand on her hip, expressionless. What are you even talking about? He explained at once, the Emperor must be the one to open the very first dance, to signal the start of the banquet. Didn't you know that? Her face turned cold. And so? He closed his eyes as if it were obvious. And so, you're dancing with me. Charles shot back immediately. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm your sister, not your fiancé, and certainly not a royal princess. Rosidian asked, puzzled. Why aren't you part of the royal family then? Charles frowned, judging him. Oh, is that really how it is? So today you're absolutely determined to treat me as royalty no matter what. She wrapped her arms around Askin's arm at once, thinking competitively, You think I'm just going to hop straight onto the bullet train to annulment, don't you? With that thought, Charles paid no mind to Rosidian's darkening expression and said, Brother, what are you even saying? I'm the young lady of the Anbis family. Besides, I already have a fiancé, you know. Rosidian gritted his teeth and ordered, Let go of him. She stubbornly stuck out her tongue to tease him. Why should I let go? And so round 2 of their invisible battle began. She leaned against Askin's shoulder and said, Brother, you still haven't greeted my fiancé, have you? He's the man I love most in this world. Askin recalled the scene of Charles marking her territory. This man, he belongs to you. That image matched perfectly with how she was acting now. Come on, brother, greet him properly. He looked at her with bashful eyes as she stood there defending him. An unusually tense silence settled over them. Rosidian smirked coldly, his lips curling into a faint smile. Then he turned and ordered a servant to bring wine. You, come here. My eyes have been a little unfocused lately. I've been so busy with her. My apologies, Duke Limit. Would you accept this gift as my apology? Charles watched, irritated, as the old tyrant poured out a huge amount of wine, cursing inwardly this damned tyrant. Askin bowed politely and answered, Forgive my rudeness, but I have official duties to attend to once I return. If your majesty permits, I'll only accept this one glass. Rosidian spoke firmly. I heard the Duke of the West is quite the man of principle, yet here you are, all bark for a single glass of wine. Still, I suppose I should commend your courage for daring to refuse the Emperor's wine. Come now, let's raise our glasses to that foolish, reckless courage. Charles lowered her head and thought, This is so childish, even I feel embarrassed just watching. With that, she snatched the wine glass right out of Rosidian's hand. She tilted her head back and downed it in one gulp, leaving him utterly stunned. Charles shouted, That's pathetic, you should really stop. So proud of your drinking capacity, huh? Do you have any idea how much someone who can't drink suffers through this? Inwardly, Charles grumbled to herself, Damn it, that wine must be incredibly strong. I'm already feeling tipsy after just one glass. Right after that, she staggered and nearly fell. Askin quickly caught her and said gently, My lady, I think it would be best if we step outside for some fresh air together. Charles pouted, realizing this was the perfect chance to cause chaos for her tyrant of a brother. But she didn't want to ruin the mood with Askin, so she agreed instead. He turned to Rosidian and announced, I'll be back once she's feeling a bit more clear-headed, Your Majesty. Seeing this, Rosidian waved a hand dismissively. Fine, go on, take her outside. Outside, the rain poured down heavily. Charles stood alone on the balcony looking down. Since Askin had gone to fetch some water earlier, he'd told her, I'll be right back. Charles thought to herself, It's so unfair that I ended up in the body of an alcoholic, yet only her weak tolerance carried over. But at least the cold breeze helped clear her head a little. Suddenly, a voice called out loudly from behind her. "My lady!" Ian approached, complimenting her. "You look just as beautiful as ever today." He put on his usual courteous, gentle smile. Ian asked politely, "Might I stand here with you for a moment?" Charles said coldly, "Even if I said no, you'd stay anyway, wouldn't you?" He stepped closer and answered, "Duke Limit isn't here at the moment, so I thought I'd keep you company." She crossed her arms and objected, "He only went to get some water. There's no need to worry." He suddenly took hold of her hand. "My lady, if it isn't too forward of me, would you care to dance with me?" Charles stared at him intently, thinking, "He's asking me to dance. Everyone else here is too busy being either afraid of me or gossiping about me." Ian looked up and explained, to avoid any misunderstanding, "I only wanted to reserve the next dance after your dance with Duke Limit. The whole world knows the two of you are engaged. How could I possibly have any other intentions? I simply wanted to see the dance of the most precious person here one more time, that's all." Charles's expression turned cold as she wondered to herself, "Is this man deliberately trying to provoke me?" Annoyed, she pulled her hand back and answered, "I knew it. For someone like me, Lady Ambus, precious enough to draw every eye in the room, dancing with someone like you would be truly humiliating." Hearing that, Ian looked utterly stunned. "I'm sorry." She cut him off coldly. "I don't know how much you overheard, but up to now, even my own fiancé hasn't asked me to dance. And now you call me precious. Does that even sound like a compliment to you?" "I'm not in the mood to be mocked, get lost." Ian tried to salvage what little dignity he had left. "That wasn't my intention at all, but it seems I really did choose the wrong moment. My apologies, I hope you can forgive my rudeness." She let out an exhausted sigh. Yet another voice called out, "My lady, we've missed you so much." Charles paled, irritated inwardly, and thought, "Now who is it this time? Aren't you the same group from earlier? What are you all doing here?" Among that group of young ladies, one stepped forward slowly. Rhodaria hid her deeply malicious smile behind her fan, narrowing her eyes as she looked at Charles. Thank you all for watching today's video. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.